want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it. I want you to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications. There are 435 members of the United States House of Representatives. Okay, the U.S. House is supposed to represent the people. There are 100 United States senators. Now, we have lived through a nation. First of all, this year in August, we will commemorate 400 years of people of African descent being in America when the first 20-odd Africans arrived in Virginia in 1619. That will happen this August. But what happens when in the same year, 2019, and an avowed white nationalist, white supremacist, is sitting right there in the United States House of Representatives, and the Republicans don't say a damn thing? Today, the New York Times had an article, folks. In that article, it was the headline of their article said, before Trump, Steve King, can you see my iPad, please? Before Trump, Steve King set the agenda for the wall and anti-immigrant policies. Steve King has served in Iowa for the last 9 terms. This is a quote from that very article in today's New York Times. White nationalists, white supremacists, Western civilization. How did that language become offensive? Mr. King said, why did I sit in classes teaching me about the merits of our history and our civilization? Y'all, let me say that again. That's Steve King, who is a member of the United States House of Representatives. Now, as a result of Steve King's comment, he was criticized. This right here is a quote from Justin Amash, who's a member of Congress. Quote, this is an embrace of racism, and it has no place in Congress or anywhere. That's Justin Amash, who is a Republican who hails from he's from Michigan. Okay, now let me go ahead and pull this up because Liz Cheney, who is the daughter of former Vice President Dick Cheney. She is a member of Congress. She is over the House Republican Conference. She hails from Wyoming. This is what she tweeted. These comments are abhorrent and racist and should have no place in our national discourse. Steve King asked how terms white nationalists and white supremacists became offensive. Let me say that again. Liz Cheney, the woman who is criticizing Steve King, is the chair of the House Republican Conference, which means she's in the House Republican leadership. Y'all gonna get that in a second. Now, when you talk about Steve King, this ain't the first time Steve King has said these things. Of course. This is Kevin McCarthy, the current Republican leader in the House. This was prior to November election when Steve King was running for office. Quote, we watched a new freshman stand up, use this, no, I'm sorry, this is the comment where he criticized the sister from Detroit who called Trump an MF. Quote, we watched a new freshman stand up, use this language, get cheered by their base, and we watched a brand new speaker say nothing to her. Y'all, let me just real quick here. Let me just go to my iPad since we on the air, and let me go to Kevin McCarthy's Twitter feed. And let's see here. I am looking at a tweet he sent out 1 hour ago, nothing about Steve King. 6 hours ago, nothing about Steve King. Okay, I'm sorry. Now we at 1 day. So basically, I see nothing from Kevin McCarthy critical of Steve King. Here is Jim Jordan. He is, of course, Republican congressman from Ohio. If you needed any more proof that Democrats are more focused on stopping President Trump than securing the border and helping the country, look no further than Rashida Tlaib's comment, we're going to go in there and impeach, you know what? They can't help themselves. Hold on one second right there. So since that was Jim Jordan, let me go on back to Twitter right here, and let me just type in Jim Jordan, and let me see if there's anything on Representative Jim Jordan's Twitter feed. Let's see here. I'm looking on here. Here we go to my iPad. Let's see. 37 minutes ago, nothing. Let's see here. 4 hours ago, nothing. 5 hours ago, 5 hours ago, 8 hours ago. No, there's nothing from Jim Jordan. Now let's talk about Mike Huckabee. This is what Mike Huckabee, Governor Mike Huckabee, formerly of Arkansas. You know, Mike Huckabee, Southern Baptist Convention minister. Mike Huckabee, daddy of the current press secretary, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Mike Huckabee, former Republican presidential candidate. This is what he said: disturbing, anti-Semitic, Palestinian Rashida Tlaib. There's never been a nation called Palestine. Erases Israel from map in her office. And on first day on, Congresswoman screams obscenities about Donald Trump. Do Dems support this bigotry and hate? While we are here, let me go ahead and go to my iPad and pull this thing up right here. Y'all just bear with me right here. Let's see. Mike Huckabee. You can go ahead and just take the iPad so they can see me typing in Mike Huckabee, just so they know. Governor Mike Huckabee. Let's see here. An hour ago, a Jim Acosta tweet. Let's see. 6 hours ago, Trump at the border. 6 hours ago, fake news. Let's see. 8 hours ago, 10 hours ago, basically nothing about Steve King. Now, Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa. He's the one who endorsed Steve King before the election. This is what, so Chuck Grassley, he actually endorsed him and talked about how he'd be good for Iowa. Now, he's made racist comments before. Now, after this thing blew up, oh, by the way, hold up. I'm sorry, I didn't pull this up because here's the other issue, y'all. Because let's deal with our mainstream media, because y'all know we talk about this right now, Roland Martin Unfiltered. I was looking at, before we came on the air, I saw a tweet, and she is the media director for Media Matters. Her name is Liz Power. Let me pull up Liz Power. I need to show y'all this so y'all can understand how white supremacy is allowed to continue in 2019. Liz Power sent this tweet out across, and she said, boom, this was 1 hour ago. Liz Power tweeted, I can't find a single mention of Steve King on Fox News, CNN, or MSNBC so far today. How/why is this not a bigger story on cable TV? Let me unpack that, y'all. Here you have a sitting member of Congress, Republican from Iowa, who says, how did white supremacy and white nationalism become a bad thing? And the cable networks, MSNBC, liberal, CNN, Trump loves called liberal fake news, Fox News, no, they weren't going to say a damn thing. They haven't said a word. I do recall Jake Tapper talking about Louis Farrakhan and Keith Ellison.
Of course.
I do recall.
Come on now.
Fox News talking about Keith Ellison and talking about Rashida Tlaib.
Yes.
MSNBC even talked about Rashida Tlaib and her calling Trump, we're going to impeach this MF. But you mean to tell me, in a 24-hour news cycle, not one mention of of what Steve King had to say in the New York Times, not in the Pasadena Times, not in the Toluca Times, but in the New York Times, front page. Now, after all this criticism, y'all, Steve King realized that he had to make a statement. So this is what he put out. Today, the New York Times is suggesting that I am an advocate for white nationalism and white supremacy. Stop. Come back to me. He said the New York Times is suggesting, y'all, the New York Times was quoting him. That was a quote. It wasn't, they didn't imply it. We're not inferring it. It's what his ass said. Let me keep reading. I want to make one thing abundantly clear, because you know there's some white energy behind that. I reject those labels and the evil ideology that they define. Further, I condemn anyone that supports this evil and bigoted ideology, which saw in its ultimate expression the systematic murder of 6 million innocent Jewish lives. Stop!
Wow.
the systematic murder of 6 million innocent Jewish lives. First of all, the Holocaust happened in Germany.
That's right.
Did not happen in America.
That's right.
I'm not excusing that. I'm pointing you the geographic boundaries where it happened. Here is Steve King of Iowa tying this notion of bigotry and bigotry and racism to the Holocaust. Yet Steve King, in the same statement, says nothing about the Holocaust that took place right here in the United States that created the United States. While you want to mention the 6 million innocent Jewish lives there, you could have mentioned King Leopold and what he did as the king of Belgium, what he did in the Congo. Oh, but I guess those folks don't count. Let me go back to his statement. This is what he said. It's true that, like the founding fathers, I am an advocate for Western civilization's values, and that I profoundly believe that America is the greatest tangible expression of these ideals the world has ever seen. Under any fair political definition, I am simply a nationalist. America's values are expressed in our founding documents. They are attainable by everyone, and we take pride that people of all races, religions, and creeds from around the globe aspire to achieve them. I am dedicated to keeping America this way. This conviction does not make me a white nationalist or a white supremacist. Once again, I reject those labels and the ideology that they define. As I told the New York Times, it's not about race. It's never been about race. One of my most strongly held beliefs is that we are all created in God's image and that human life is sacred in all forms. Now, let me go ahead and help y'all out in the very same statement. Did y'all catch that little thing that we saw right there? First of all, in his statement, he talked about the founding fathers, and then he went on, see, because y'all, I deal in words, okay? And then he said this comment about in our papers. Did y'all catch that? Let me help y'all out. I want to break this down.
Bring that beat back.
I want to break this down. Quote, America's values are expressed in our founding documents. Okay, I'm going to read that again because some of y'all didn't get that. America's values are expressed in our founding documents. Y'all, Steve King is showing you why he's a white supremacist. Because the founding documents of America excluded black people. The founding documents of America excluded women. The founding documents of America were all about white male landowners. The founding documents of America stipulated that members of Congress were to be picked, not voted upon, picked by other leaders. The founding documents of America said all men are created equal. Thomas Jefferson, the very man who then owned slaves and also felt that black people were inferior to white people. Yes, those are the founding documents. The founding documents of America put white supremacy in its very document. The United States Constitution itself is a white supremacist document because a nation was founded as a white nation for white men. He then criticizes the New York Times, yet in the same article in the New York Times, Steve King makes a comment saying, as he looked across at the Democratic Party, the new members in the House, he said in the same article, look at it, there's no place for white men in their party. But he said, my comment is not about race. So if your comment is not about race, why are you commenting that white men, for the first time, are the majority in the House Democratic caucus? Y'all, here's the real deal. When Steve King talks about Western ideology, what he's saying is we used to be a nation that was all about white men. And damn it, now we got to move the hell over for these Negroes and for these Latinos and Latinas and for the Asians and for the people who are Korean and Japanese and you from the Philippines and you from the Congo and Haiti and Bermuda and Latin America and from other parts of North America and from Haiti and from Africa and all these places. Why can't We go back and just be a nation that was for white folks, that was for white men, where we had all the control and all the power, and we controlled the schools and the government and the economy, and the rest of y'all could just farm the land and work for us and shut the hell up. That is what Steve King wants. But guess who hasn't said a word? GOP chairwoman Romney McDaniel. Quick to criticize Tlaib, ain't said jack as a white supremacist in her party. Kevin McCarthy, nothing. Donald Trump, nothing. Mitch McConnell, nothing. So Republicans always ask, well, I don't understand why black people just feel that way about us. Why they so sometime? Because y'all ass sometime. Because you're going to criticize Tlaib for using motherfucker in reference to Trump, but then you say nothing about a motherfucker who's a white supremacist.
Come on, brother.
I need you to explain to me exactly who y'all siding with. Should he be censured? Yes. Ben Shapiro, conservative, wrote an article saying, y'all hold up, that's not quite what he meant. But then Ben Shapiro, in his reflexive nature, because he's been riding with the white supremacist Steve King for all these years, actually had to go back and reread what the hell he said. Then was like, oops, that was an update on my article. He then says he needs to be censured and he needs to be primaried in 2020. Why am I saying all of this? Because the 2019 Republican Party has essentially said, we welcome with open arms a white supremacist like Steve King. We welcome with open arms for him to be in our party. Matter of fact, we will see and hold him and cherish his vote as long as he votes our way. He is still on his committees. They've said nothing. And the media has been complicit because they refuse to say anything about Steve King. You know why? Because, see,
they agree.
We just going to let that thing just slide. Because part of the problem is when you look in mainstream media in the executive suites, they look like the very country Steve King longs for. White men running everything. What y'all need to understand that this is the modern day Republican Party. And when Dinesh D'Souza sat in this studio and tried to talk about how Democrats were racist, and they were, I had to remind him, so were Republicans, and so were the Whigs and everybody else, because the reality is America was founded on a basis of white supremacy. That's what the fear is. Earlier, CJ talked about this wall. Why has Steve King talked about a wall? Why is Trump talking about a wall? I keep telling y'all, because they are scared of people of color. The reason the federal government is shut down right now is because of the wall. Because you know who is on the other side of the wall? People that don't look like Steve King. And the people who Steve King represent in Iowa are scared to death because they're like, my God, this used to be our country. When Steve King goes on Tucker Carlson and he's decrying, oh my goodness, what's going on? What happened to our values and our Western ideology? What he is saying is what has happened. It used to be white people running everything. It's not our fault y'all stopped having kids. It's not our fault that in 10 states in America in the next 5 years, the white annual death rate is going to be higher than the white annual birth rate. And guess what? If every white person in America starts trying to pop out babies right now, y'all still won't be able to catch up. Here's the reality. We ain't going back. Y'all going to suck this thing up. In 25 years, by 2043, America's going to be a nation, majority people of color. And guys like Steve King, it's going to be tough for them. It's already tough for them because they just got to see all this blackness and all this brownness, and they don't know what to do. Because you're going to have to deal with the reality that Cortez and Ayanna Pressley, Lauren Underwood, and all these brothers and sisters who not white men, they're not going to be like Toby. They're not going to bow down. They're not going to bend over. They're not going to pick cotton. They're not going to be sharecroppers. They're not going to say yes, massa, no, massa. They're not going to get off the sidewalk when you walk by. They're not going to give up their seat. Steve King, you are an avowed racist. You are a white supremacist. And as long as the Republican Party allows for you to be there in good standing, the Republican Party in the United States, and every person who calls themselves a Republican, who says nothing, who doesn't call for him to be censured, who doesn't call for him to be condemned, you are agreeing with white supremacy. It's as simple as that. So all my black Republican friends, CJ, all of y'all, I just wonder if y'all gonna say anything. If y'all gonna call out the chairman of the party who said nothing, or your dear leader, the compassionate one, Donald Trump.
He is compassionate.
The reality is this: Steve King will not change. He will be who he is. Simple as that. Any comments from the panel?
Well, I can say that the governor has said that she was not endorsing him for the primary.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. First of all, I read that story, and in that story, she said nothing about his present comments. She actually was referring. She said, first of all, I'm not endorsing. She said, I'm going to be neutral. But she specifically, she did not condemn these comments. Anything else?
Bottom line is, he will not probably win in 2020.
No. We're not talking about 2020. We're talking about 2019. Well, right now, he is a member. No.
I understand that
we
he is a
ain't
member.
jumping to the next Congress.
And I'm
We're dealing with
let me
116.
finish what I'm saying. He will not be a member. He will probably lose his primary in 2020.
No. We're not talking about 2020, CJ. I'm talking about January 2019.
I can hear.
So all this talk like he might lose.
Allow me to finish.
They said he might lose in November this year.
Allow me to finish.
What's next?
He will be primaried.
You still talking about 2020? Can you stick with January 2019?
I can stick with January, and I can stick with right now.
Well, come on.
Finish. He will be primaried. But in the interim, he should be censured, and also the Democratic member as well. But there needs to be...
Oh, here we go. The Democratic member should be censured, but not the white supremacists.
I said they both should.
Impeach the motherfucker. This is the point with Rashida Tlaib. You see he put creature quotes under Palestinian? Did you see what this white supremacist did? Mm-hmm. This isn't even really about Steve King. Steve King, as Roland has said, is a litmus test of white supremacy. He says, drop white nationalists. I'm just a nationalist. When you drop white, you know what you do? You make it invisible. And the power of whiteness...
I don't agree.
No. It's not a question of agreement and disagreement. Let's not even talk about it.
And all this stuff he gonna lose next year, that man, Steve King, endorsed a white supremacist in Canada before the November election.
Right.
He endorsed a white supremacist in Europe, and the white folks, the good white folks in Iowa still elected him.
And at the end of the day...
Greg, go ahead, then Cleo.
Very quickly. When you drop white in front of nationalists and just say nationalists, white is implied. The largest act of genocide in this country was the destruction of millions of Native Americans. 2 Native Americans joined the United States Congress. Roland is right.
And abortion.
They are terrified. You know why they're terrified? It's over, baby. And any Negro running with these white supremacists is a servant of them.
Cleo, then Deron.
This would come up like this at the end of the show, but you mentioned earlier, Roland, that, and I already knew this, that what I call the white supremacist mainstream press has not covered this.
At all.
In previous shows, you had a guest on here who talked about, and I forgot the specifics about the stats, but we are heavy TV watchers, black folks. So we sit here...
Like MSNBC, their ratings are up because they have the highest black viewership of any cable network out there. Go ahead.
So my point is that, and I do a lot of work around the country interviewing parents and talking to children and college students about their critical thinking capacity and that they have a critical analysis about the society they live in, and frankly, most of them don't. They know about Beyonce and some other stuff, but they don't have a critical analysis. They don't recognize, for example, that there's no such thing as a reliable love story between 2 black people on TV.
Got it.
So my point is, which we don't have time to get into, is that I'm not sure about all of this stuff about whiteness is being dismantled, it's going to be taken over. Because you got to remember that South Africa...
No. I didn't say it was going to be taken over. It's going to be dismantled. What I said is, what is scaring them to death are the demographic change.
Sure, I know what you're saying.
The power dynamic, and that's the issue, which why I keep saying to black folks, we better be on top of our game, because I don't want us looking like South Africa, where black folks got the power, but got the political power, but don't control the money and the other economic systems. Gotcha.
That's my concern. I didn't finish, but I'm going to try to do this. We don't got time. The bottom line is I'm concerned about that, because we need to have a show that talks about parents giving their children a critical analysis, getting them prepared to live in a society and prepared to have power.
Right.
And not as an accident, but as an intentional, purposeful life.
Oh, yes.
Because we're being trained, our kids are being trained every day through school systems, media systems to be anti-black. Yep. And there's a lot of anti-blackness in this society. One of the reasons in South Africa why white folks insisted on the children learning Afrikaans, because they knew that had a linguistic impact on their worldview, and that they would unconsciously agree with white supremacy. And it's a lot of black people who find white devils compassionate because they don't have a clear critical analysis of the evil of white supremacy. If we don't have that analysis, we're going to outnumber them.
Gotcha.
But they still going to be running things.
Deron.
You understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
We got to talk about that, or else we're going to sit here be dark-skinned white supremacists.
Deron.
You laid out this entire show, you laid out some of the most concrete arguments ever. I'm glad I was here.
Logic.
Because it was logic. And I realized, and that's why I'm doing this furlough event tomorrow, feeding families.
That's right.
Because what you're saying, what you just said, is that it's not going to end.
Nope.
And we're at war, and we decided if I can just say, we're going to feed families, give them haircuts and everything. We're going to feed families. We're going to give them haircuts. We're going to do it at Athletic Republic in Forestville, and we're going to shut down the gas station. And when I say shut down the gas station, we're going to pump every gallon of gas out in the cars tomorrow on 111, because a week ago I was watching this, looking at this stuff, and realized this ain't going to end.
No.
And what you're saying just changed my paradigm. Wow. When you said, and I understood this, but when you say, and that's why I was not trying to label my system, I said, but this is miseducation, because you cannot say the word compassion. And my people are hungry and crying, and they are out begging on the streets in Prince George's County, one of the richest counties in the world, for food.
And I understand that.
And
we
this
hope
is-
that
don't
gets
say
back at.
compassion.
But it is compassion
and this
for white
is-
supremacy.
and this is
That's
why-
that's all I believe.
And this
It's
is
not
what
compassion
this
for
is
white
why
supremacy
the
either.
reason I'm laying all this out as well, and I've done this in my speeches. We talk about the whole issue of anti-black. That has been a part of my speeches for the last several years, because where we are going, this thing ain't about 2020. This ain't about Steve King in 2020. This ain't about the re-election of Trump in 2020. I've been saying this since 2009, that this white fear, this anxiety, this ain't about economic. Trump was elected because he pushed the buttons of white fear.
That's right.
That's what he did. That's why he won 53% of white women. That's why he won college-educated whites, because he was pushing the buttons, because what is so deeply embedded, and I'll dare say this, is some white folks who don't even realize it. They're just like, oh, no, that's just not me. No. But he pressed the right buttons, and this is all about where 2043 and 2045 and 2050, because America, since its founding and before its founding, was a nation that was constructed for white people coming from Europe, coming to a foreign land, destroying the native folks who were already here to establish their own homeland that was about whiteness.
Right.
And the problem now, the demographic numbers have changed so dramatically that they looked up and said, oh my God, with the election of Obama, damn, that thing is now real. And so now so what happened? Trump comes along, Stephen Miller, that racist, is right behind him. The same Stephen Miller, where Richard Spencer, the white supremacist, said he was my mentor at Duke University. Don't think that ain't combined. He comes along and it's like, no, we're going to keep y'all out. Hey, can y'all send them Haitians back, them shithole countries? Can we stop the immigration from these African countries? Why does Paul Ryan try to get several thousand visas for folks from his native Ireland to come in before he leaves as Speaker of the House? Because they like, how can we import as many white people as we possibly can? Because these people of color are going to be taking this thing over, and we have controlled this since we were founded, and what in the hell are we going to do? And like I said to the white supremacist Richard Spencer, And I even had, I mean, real quick, I even had some Negroes try to tell me, you were scared to call yourself a black man when you debated Richard Spencer. Well, first of all, those of you who don't even know how to debate, I knew exactly what he was trying to establish. And so he wanted me to say, I'm a black man, but I totally jacked him up when I said, no, I'm a man. Because, see, he wanted to say, I'm a white man, I'm a black man. No, I want to let him know I'm a man. Because it threw his whole argument off. But y'all who don't know how to debate, some of y'all simpletons, y'all didn't understand that. But I told Richard Spencer, I said, you better go work out. Because we ain't going nowhere. And y'all going to have a fight on your hands. And that's what this is about. I just got a text. So this is what Kevin McCarthy has finally commented. Quote, Steve's language is reckless, wrong, and has no place in our society. That's what Kevin McCarthy said. And now, now which king is this?
I'm going to talk to my friend.
Oh, and now Steve King is now issued his second statement. He might have as many statements as Kevin Hart. His second statement is, I reject white nationalism. I reject white supremacy. It's not part of any of my ideology. I reject anyone who carries that ideology. Well, then you got to explain to me why you endorsed the white supramists in Canada last year. Why you endorsed the white nationalists last year. See, I'm just gonna let y'all know.
Get him, brother, real
I'm just gonna.
He watching this show, right?
I'm just gonna let you know. You can't have fleas all over your body and then say I wasn't sleeping with a dog. You can't. You can't have a established record of being a white supremacist and rolling with white supremacists and kicking it with white nationalists and hanging with them and talking with them and eating with them and sleeping with them and saying that's my boy, that's my girl, and then say, oh, I reject all of it.
You don't reject that.
No, boo.
No.
That ain't gonna work.
No.
Because, see, I done told y'all white supremacists this. Come on. I have told y'all white supremacists. And I'm real clear. I'm the reason y'all didn't want our ancestors to know how to read.
Come on. Well,
because when we know how to read, we can read your bullshit.
that's right.
And you been read, Steve King. And I'm just going to wait to see how many black Republicans have some guts to call out their own party for being quiet. I'm just going to wait for Liz Cheney or Justin Amash or Kevin McCarthy to be the first to call for him to be censured, not along with Rashida Tlaib,
Right.
on his own, because Steve King was a white supremacist before she was elected. He was a white supremacist long before she even thought she was going to run for office, because he'd been there 18 years, and he'd been a white supremacist the whole time. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Donald Trump is speaking to the nation tonight in a primetime address, or should we say lying to the nation tonight. Hey, where's my Trump Lives Matter stinger? Really? Are y'all falling asleep? Okay, find it, please. Seriously.
Every single day.
I know that. Okay, Jacob, my producer, goes every single day. Well, play the damn thing every single day. Okay. That's why we created the thing, to play it every day. All right, all the broadcast networks and all the cable networks caved into Trump's request to speak on his border wall. Now, remember, when President Barack Obama wanted to address the nation on immigration in 2014, the broadcast networks refused his request, maybe because he wouldn't tweet about him and dog him, but they went ahead and went along with Trump. Now, he is trying to salvage his campaign promise to build a wall, which Mexico is not paying for, even though he said Mexico was going to pay for it. He's also declaring there's a humanitarian crisis on the border, which we haven't been able to find. Now, to the extent there is a crisis on the border, Trump calls it himself, with his zero-tolerance policy. Here to talk about the true situation on the border is Dr. Niambi Carter from Howard University, who's currently working on a book about Black opinion on immigration in the United States, in addition to studying President Trump's immigration rhetoric and its influence on voters. All right, Doc, let's get right to it. So, so earlier today, the White House signaled that he may declare this national emergency, which would give him the power to, I don't know what the hell, create this wall. But now they're backing off of that. So what do you make of all of a sudden there's this national security emergency due to the border, the southern border?
Well, it's not an emergency. Really, the president has created the emergency, as you rightly pointed out. The truth is, most of the people at the border are seeking asylum. There are many children at the border who are no threat to the United States. And in fact, there are 2 children who died in U.S. custody from our poor behavior and our inability to actually house children in a safe manner. And we still have the children who've been separated from their parents earlier this year who are still awaiting reunification with their parents. So the crisis at the border is much overblown. And I think that's why he's backed off of declaring it a national security emergency.
And so let's just be honest. This is Trump's attempt to gin up his base. Because conservative media attacked him when the Senate passed the budget that 100-0 to reopen the government, and he leaned on the House not to pass that in order to get money for the wall, which Mexico was supposed to pay for, but Mexico is not paying for. He wants American taxpayers to pay for, even though he lied and told us Mexico was going to pay for it.
Right. Well, I mean, it was always a bogus promise, right? That was something he couldn't ever deliver. And I think the fact that most Americans don't understand basic civics, you can't compel a sovereign nation to pay for something in your country. Moreover, he can't compel Congress to give him the funding. That's why we're in a government shutdown right now. This was always about making the most base parts of his voter base excited, because it's a white supremacist tactic at best.
We also now know, because we now have administration officials. You have Roger, who's that thug? Roger, what's his name? Roger, y'all know.
Yeah.
The Trump's thug. Roger Stone, okay? Like I give a damn who he is. Well, he's a thug. And he came out and said that they came up with this whole wall deal because Trump couldn't remember a damn thing. And so it's like, look, anytime you forget something, just say the wall and the crowd's going to go crazy. So we know that that's really what this whole thing is about. It's not actually about an issue with immigration. I mean, this is about pressing the buttons to get his, frankly, white base fired up on the issue of it's them people who are calling us all these problems.
Absolutely. And we have a wall. We have barbed wire. We have fence. The fact of the matter is, it's a 2,000-mile border that we have with Mexico. The border with Canada is bigger than that. So it's really hard to secure that space. But you're exactly right, Roland. I mean, numbers of people coming into the United States have been declining for years, especially given the fact that we are in a recession economically. So this idea that everybody is clamoring to come to the United States is a falsehood. But it's more important to him that we push this narrative, that he pushed this narrative, right? That these brown people are coming to the United States and they're coming to take your jobs and they're coming to hurt you. I mean, he tried it with black people. Black people weren't persuaded by it, but that didn't stop him from saying it. And he's been saying it. And for white supremacists, this is basically kitty litter to them. Right? This is the kind of stuff that they want to hear. Keep America white and keep all those brown people out, and everything will work out fine.
So he's supposed to speak for 7 to 8 minutes. I don't believe that for a second. I think he's probably going to forget what he's doing and go off on a tangent. It might be 15, 20 minutes. And then he's supposed to go down to the southern border on Thursday. Again, to me, it's more histrionics. This is somebody who is, frankly, this is all he has left. And I think even Republicans are getting tired of the drama, because now we're seeing TSA people say, look, I'm going to quit because I gotta feed my family. Other individuals who are saying, I can't pay bills. And then for him to say, oh, I know how you feel. No, you don't. You've been rich your whole life. And so even so, I think you have members of his base who are realizing their lives are about to be impacted, as a result of him not trying to keep the government open.
Well, even his claims about this is mostly affecting Democrats. I mean, there's no way to have a government shutdown that only hurts Democrats and that people are for this. When people's payments start getting cut off, when people can't do the basic things that they need to do, like fly, ride a bus, I mean, all of those kinds of things that rely on federal support. And that's not to forget the physical infrastructure of this nation that relies on federal support. FDA, which is partially shut down, all of these important agencies that are being affected. I mean, the IRS, right? All of this is tax season. This is blow up season for most people, right? And now we have a moment where we have a president who is saying all of these critical functions can't happen because I want to build this wall to my own vanity and my own vision of white supremacy on this here earth. This isn't about a policy because this is an immigration policy. He doesn't care about immigration policy. He just wants to build this monument to himself. And that's all this is about.
All right, then. Well, Doc, we certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Roland.
Thank you very much, folks. Dr. Deon B. Carter, Howard University. All right, let's go to our panel here in the studio. My far left, Dr. Julianne Malveaux, President Emerita and also economist, Bennett College. We have, of course, joining us new as well. First, we got Malik, who's here. Did y'all actually forget to put Malik in here? Malik Abdul, Republican Communications Consultant, who joins us back with the bow tie. And Aris Foley, social media curator for The Hill. How y'all doing?
Good. Good.
All right, so Malik, I'll start with you. There is no damn national emergency. There is none. I mean, this is absolutely positively made up. And even fellow Republicans are like, dude, seriously, it's not an emergency.
Yeah, I don't think it's it's not a national emergency. It is definitely an issue, and it's an issue that the United States have been dealing with for a while now. The Democrats, I understand that Nancy Pelosi now thinks. Well, I'm sorry, the country has been dealing with for a while, not Democrats. I understand that now, Nancy Pelosi thinks it's something that's immoral, despite the fact that the party supported it in 2006. So what we're talking about, and it's the same thing that I said the last time we were on the show, this is an issue of semantics at this point. We know that there will not be a wall to stretch the entire border of the United States. So what we're talking about now is similar to what we talked about in 2006.
So why does he keep lying then? Because first of all,
he lied.
Because he throws out stuff like eminent domain. He throws out, we can just take the land. It's real easy to do so. When first of all, he clearly has not been there because it's not as simple. I mean, somebody who's a native Texan. I mean, if you actually see the video of the border, it ain't that simple. In fact, Aris and Julian, I'm gonna play a video in a second. There was a video that Beto O'Rourke put together. Oh, God. And when y'all see, no, what you mean? What it's called? It's called using a drone to show you what the border looks like, where it's not as simple to just go, yeah, we're gonna throw a wall up. Julian, go.
Here's the deal. You cannot make chicken salad out of chicken spit. So that's what I'm saying. I'm cleaning it up because I'm on Roland show. But here's the deal. You cannot. You're going through people's property. Mm-hmm. You're looking at rivers and all this stuff. No, there's not going to be a wall. This man did not ever want to be a wall. What he is a wall. He's a wall in his brain that is just insane. And so for any of us to indulge in this conversation is to essentially kowtow to stupidity.
All right, so here's the deal. So here's the video that Beto O'Rourke put out that folks have been talking about. Because, again, I want y'all to actually see. Because when you hear all this stuff about, they'll show you, like, a piece of land where it's a desert. It's like, okay, so here's the wall. Okay, this is what most of the southern border looks like. So check this out. All right, so y'all go ahead. Aris, you can't put a wall right there. It's a river, okay? It's a river, and it's Mexico on one side and the U.S. on the other. You can't just say, I'm going to throw a wall up right there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think what you said before, too, a big part of it is just pandering to his base. Even the primetime address tonight, it's probably very unlikely that Democrats, especially a Democratic-controlled House, will actually meet his demand for $5 billion for a border wall. But, I mean, cable news outlets are going to pick it up anyway because Trump is able to bring in ratings.
That's what it is. It's
there's
eyeball.
a reason why Obama, also, I mean, we're entering the 18th day of the shutdown. I think the longest ever shutdown on record was 21 days in 1996. So, I mean, like,
the other piece of this that's important is that while he's looking at the southern wall, from the north, we see people coming from Canada. We see white people coming. We see Paul Ryan.
Oh, yeah, no. They don't mind white people. They don't mind white folks.
Yeah.
I mean, Paul Ryan going out tried to get thousands of visas for folks from Ireland.
People. Well, anyone who's not from a shithole country.
Right, precisely.
But that's the other piece of it is how you talk about you're so afraid about people coming in when the fear ought to be that people come from airlines, they come from Canada, they come from all these places. These people are not threats to us. These people are, in fact, we stole all this.
Hold on, I want to do this. I'm going to play another video of O'Rourke again, because I need y'all to understand. I want y'all to actually see what the border looks like. So here we go to my iPad.
Roland, you and your iPad.
So again, what are we putting up?
Well, so we already have a wall. We know that a wall is
actually there's several walls.
Right.
Yeah,
and whatever variation you call it, and I think that I agree with what we're really talking about, whether you call it a wall, whether you call it slats, whether you call it a fence, barbed wire, whatever it is, it's something that's it's a barrier. So that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about a barrier. The wall has become a symbol of whatever.
So the wall has become rhetorical.
The wall that we already have.
No, rhetorical bullshit. Excuse my language. Rhetorical bullshit.
Flourish.
Because this man has used the notion of a wall that Mexico was supposed to pay for.
That we never believed.
Which we never believed.
No. We didn't believe it.
But
them fools believed it who voted for him. Oh, yes, they did.
Well, some did.
But here's the point.
No. The folks who can't read in West Virginia and some of them other states believed it.
At the end of the day, here's the problem. It's rhetorical bullshit that this man has used to essentially clown our nation.
But it's something that we already have, though. We already have a wall.
We have barriers. We have border security. We have border.
Hold on. Which wall? Concrete, steel, or cement?
It depends. It depends on the variation.
Or whatever that means.
Always had border security.
We've always had some sort of barrier.
We have had
how about this here?
Let's
figure y'all here. Who thinks he gonna lie tonight? Who believes?
He lie every night.
Who believes?
Every time he opens his mouth, he lies.
Raise your hand if you believe the speech that he's going to give tonight is going to be completely truthful.
Hey.
Completely truthful. Raise your hand.
Hey now.
Nobody. That's all I'm saying.
So
ain't nobody like I ain't raising my damn hand.
I don't know.
Because you know his ass don't lie.
I don't know.
Okay.
There could be.
I'm trying to figure out why we sleep in the control room. Okay. I done gave you the cue. Trump lying. Can you play the stinger? I mean, I'm like.
Roland Martin.
You set it up for him.
Roland Martin.
Right. I mean, I done teed it up. They sit there like, should we play it?
Can we play your music again?
Somebody control refining. Woke the hell up. Okay, it's all right, folks. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. As Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. I want you to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications. Let's go to my next story, y'all. We've had several NFL coaches who've been fired this year, a whole lot of them black coaches. And now, of course, you have the Arizona Cardinals hiring Cliff Kingsbury, who was fired by Texas Tech after going 35-40. Now, look. He's a brilliant offensive mind. He was an offensive coordinator at Texas A&M under Kevin Sumlin. Did a great job, but I'm just trying to figure out, is that what happens when you get fired on the college level and then you get one of 32 most prominent jobs in all of sports? Last night, Dallas TV anchor Dale Hansen of WFAA-TV had this spot-on commentary. Check it out.
Been a lot of criticism of the Arizona Cardinals hiring Cliff Kingsbury as their new coach. Even my guys Mike and Jonah have been questioning that hire. But Kingsbury fits all the criteria to be a head coach in the NFL. He's an offensive genius, he's young, and he's white. And not necessarily in that order. There have been 6 new coaches hired so far, all white, and 2 coaches of color they are replacing. Stephen Wilkes, fired in Arizona after just 1 year. Vance Joseph in Denver after just 2. But Cowboys coach Jason Garrett is in his 9th year, apparently because he wins so much. A lot of people don't understand how Kingsbury can have a losing record at Texas Tech, no NFL experience, and get one of the 32 NFL jobs. But getting fired at Tech doesn't eliminate him from moving up, at least it doesn't to me. I've had 11 jobs in my life, been fired from 8 of them, and moved up every time. And I am arrogant enough to tell you, I think Channel 8 was right to give me another chance. But I am the product of white privilege in America, and I've never denied that I wasn't either. If they made a poster, my picture should be on it. Getting fired at one place and getting another chance isn't the problem. But young, talented coaches of color not getting the chance, that's a huge problem. The covert racism of the NFL ownership group was so bad, the NFL had to make a rule so that minority coaches could at least get an interview. Cowboys secondary coach Chris Richard has been interviewed, and there are reports saying he might get the Miami job. After what he's done with this Cowboys defense, how could he not? Unless it is true, what black parents have been telling their children for decades now, you have to be twice as good to go half as far. I dream of the day when those parents are wrong, because now they're not.
All right, joining us right now is Dale Hansen. And Dale, here's what's stunning to me. What's stunning to me is black coaches are told, go through the system, pay your dues, be a DB coach, be a line coach, and then all of a sudden, you know, get a head coaching job, go to a Division I school, hopefully get one of those jobs and work your way up. And this is, and again, Cliff Kingsbury, nice guy, but there's no way in the world on his resume that the guy has earned to be an NFL head coach.
No, he hasn't. I like Cliff Kingsbury. I've talked to him several times, and I do think he is one of those young offensive geniuses that the NFL wants. But there's just no question. My argument is not against Cliff Kingsbury per se. It's against the opportunities that he gets, and so many talented young coaches of color do not get the opportunity. I mean, I do think the Chris Richard situation will be a good test. What Chris Richard has done with the Seattle Seahawks and then coming to Dallas and what he's done with this defense and being in a position of such a high profile with the Dallas Cowboys, if he can't parlay that into a head coaching job at the NFL and yet Cliff Kingsbury can, then I think we've identified the problem.
Well, same as Eric Bieniemy. I mean, here's a guy who's an offensive coordinator and has done a hell of a job and has paid his dues over a significant period of time. Then also, here's the other issue, because the thing trickles down, that a Kingsbury, or let's say Art Briles' son, who's a hot offensive coordinator who now's at Florida State. Well, guess what? Same thing. Charlie Wise's son gets to become an offensive coordinator. I think he's barely 24 years old. And so I always say, well, show me the black guy who's 24 or 25 or 27 who's a brilliant offensive mind, and that also happens. So you have black coaches who don't even get the offensive coordinator jobs in college to even get in position to be a head coach in the college level, and then you can't get on the pro level.
Well, this has always been the argument, and I do think it's what President Bush first said. It is a soft bigotry of lower expectations, and I think we see that all the way through. I asked former Cowboys coach Tom Landry this years ago as to why there wasn't any black quarterbacks in the NFL. And his answer was that there aren't any black quarterbacks in college. There aren't, at that time, not many black quarterbacks in college because there weren't many black quarterbacks in high school. And when there was a quarterback who played in college, when they went to the NFL, they are almost always pushed to play wide receiver, to play cornerback or safety. I think there is this soft bigotry of low expectations that has permeated the entire system for a long time. We're starting to see it change. But if you don't give a coach an opportunity to be an offensive or a defensive coordinator, if you don't give that coach an opportunity to be a head coach at the college level, how are they supposed to go become an NFL head coach? And yet I've heard people today actually make that argument, that if they want to be a coach, they have to become a coordinator. If they want to be a coach, they have to be successful at the college level. And Cliff Kingsbury, as much as I do like the young man, Cliff Kingsbury breaks all of those rules. He wasn't a coordinator, no NFL experience. His record at Texas Tech, as you pointed out, was a losing record. He never improved his defense to become a winning coach. And he jumped straight to one of 32 jobs in America. Well, it's a broken system, and somebody needs to fix it.
Well, and also, and again, people criticize Colin Kaepernick and others for protesting police brutality, but the reason they even have the Rooney Rule is because they were threatened with a lawsuit from the late Johnny Cochran and other attorneys. I was also talking to an NFL writer, Dale. This is what he told me. He said, in the history of the NFL, there has never been a club president who's African American.
I'm sure there has.
Not a single one.
We're doing a follow-up on this, or at least we will be in the next couple of days, because of just what the issue has become. How many black general managers do you have in the NFL?
There you go.
Ozzie Newsome in Baltimore. There might be one or two others. How many black coordinators do you have in the NFL? Not many. And this is in a sport that is dominated by the young black athlete. I mean, the black athlete makes up about 70% of the NFL rosters. And yet, for some reason, they just can't seem to find the young or even the old black head coach who can motivate and lead a football team that is 70% of color. And I think there again, it is simply the covert racism of the ownership that has been in place for such a long time. And when you see it repeated over and over and over, with coaches not only being given opportunities that a coach of color can't get, and then you see coaches who have failed at the NFL level and get 2 and 3 opportunities to try it again. And yet there is no young coach of color that might have deserved an opportunity. It's not right. I mean, the bottom line, I think we all know that it's not right. I do think it's getting better. I do think it will change. The reality is it just won't change fast enough in my lifetime.
Well, I'll tell you what, it is interesting that Kingsbury served under Kevin Sumlin at Texas A&M. Sumlin, very much a winning record at the University of Houston, very much a winning record at my alma mater, Texas A&M. And he's now at University of Arizona with the Arizona Wildcats, but the guy who coached under him is the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals.
There's a lot of those examples. I mean, there are a lot of them, as you well know. And I don't know how we break this cycle, but I mean, it is, and it's true in all of society. When you mention there are no black presidents, the presidents, let's assume for the moment, are doing the hiring. They tend to hire people who look like them.
Yep.
And it's true in every aspect of society. And that's why we need to break this down, to level the playing field. I don't think anyone is asking for more than what they're entitled to, and that is simply an opportunity.
That's it.
A chance to compete. That's all anybody really wants. And I think we need to figure out a way to do that.
As James Brown said, what's the line, Greg?
I don't want nothing.
I don't want nothing. Just open the door, and I'll get it myself.
All
right, Dale Hanson, keep calling them out. We appreciate it, man. Thanks a lot. Tell everybody in Dallas what's up.
That's right, bro.
Will do, Roland. Thank you.
All right, take care. Go ahead, Cleo.
Y'all can argue if I want to, but
We will.
Let's look at this from a racial behavioral perspective. The people with the athletic prowess in most of these sports are black. They outshine everybody else in terms of their capacity to get on these fields and do their thing. White people have to have relevance too. Since they can't have the same level of racial relevance and capacity as most of these brothers who are and sisters when it comes to tennis and other means of sports, if they can't do that, they got to be the ones in control, or else they can't handle the whole situation. Did that make any sense to anybody? Did I lose somebody?
As the plantation leader.
Yes,
exactly. The NFL is a plantation.
Exactly.
I haven't watched the snap in 2 years, and I don't plan on watching.
I haven't watched it in a long
White
time.
college football is a plantation.
Absolutely.
Watch this. The Rooney Rule. Name for Rooney, owner of the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is important. When Dale mentioned Tom Landry, one of the quarterbacks he didn't have to compete against was Jefferson Street Joe Gilliam.
There you go.
Who led the Pittsburgh Steelers to a 4-0 record before they gave the job to an affirmative action candidate out of Louisiana named Terry Bradshaw. Joe Gilliam was developed by his father, one of the great offensive minds of HBCU football, Joe Gilliam Sr. The NFL coaches in the summertime used to go to the HBCUs and pick the brains of the black college brain trust at the HBCU level. Where am I going with this? Very quickly.
Coach at Florida A&M.
FAMU.
FAMU.
No, Grambling,
of course, Eddie Robinson.
They lived on the sidelines in the summertime. This is what happens. The labor of the NFL and white plantation college football is black. They also put on their staffs black men to pick their brains, offensive minds who are backfield coaches, who are line coaches. So they have the brothers there to keep it. And then as you get closer to the top of the plantation, just like on a plantation, the guy with the whip, the overseer, the coordinators are white, and the owner of the plantation hires the plantation overseer who is the head coach. What am I saying with this? There are plenty of black coaches. They pick their brains for, look on those NFL staffs and look at who are closest to the labor, and that's where you find the genius. But they would never be allowed to run it because it's a plantation.
Well, it's because they're geniuses in black that white people say, okay, they got all the prowess, but we got to run this.
No,
we have to have relevance.
And this is what, CJ, go ahead.
Oh, I'm hoping, and Dale is correct, but I'm hoping that going to the Super Bowl and the first owners meeting, that the commissioner brings some of the older folks who were around in the league, like a Harold Henderson and others, to come in and say, look, we need to make some changes. This is very prevalent. Everybody's talking about it. And the Rooney Rule needs to be updated. And some other things they need to have a closed door meeting.
No, here's the deal. First of all,
no, they really do.
What you just described, they've literally done numerous times. What this is, these are, again, I go back to what I just described, what I said with Dale. There's never been a black club president, which means the highest, Ozzie Newsome with the Baltimore Ravens, who's retiring, that's the highest if you black, the highest you can get, you're going to be a GM. Or you might be head of a player personnel. But you ain't going to be club president because he is owner and is club president. That's what this is all about. Yes. And this is about power.
That's right.
It is about economic power
and control.
Because it is about the fact that not only because see, that's also who determines who gets drafted, who gets paid, how they get paid. Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. has said for years, the reason black people have excelled football and basketball and baseball and tennis and golf, he said because the rules are clear, they're transparent, and they're published. He said in basketball, the court is 94 feet long. The length from the free throw line to the rim is the same in an NBA arena, a college stadium, and a high school gym. The three-point line is different on the college and the pro level, same distance. It's 10 feet high, the goal. You get the same timeouts I get, you get 5, I get 5. Now it's time to play ball. The difference is in every other aspect, even in sports off the court. Your court is 85 feet. Mine is 105. Your rim is 7 feet. Mine's 12. And then black people will go back and we'll practice. Follow me.
We will.
We'll say, all right, y'all done moved the goal from 10 to 12 feet? All right, cool. I'm going to go back and work out, and I'm going to work my butt off to dunk this damn ball 12 feet.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm. Then when we come back after we worked out, then they like, oh, my bad. It's now 15 feet.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So then black people got to go, it'll move the damn goal up. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. You know what? Okay. I'm going to go back, and I'm going to train for that 15-foot goal. And then you go bust your butt and train. And then when you come back, they go, oh, we dropped it to 11. So now you overshoot the damn rim. That's the story of black people off the court in sports, in corporate America, in media, in politics, in every avenue. You talked about Trump earlier. That white boy is doing stuff Obama could never do. Why? Because Obama's a brother. Hell, Obama couldn't even wear a damn tan suit. Well, these folks losing their mind.
Couldn't get network.
In America, there's a standard for white men in America, for white women in America, and everybody else is after them. I'll go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you a question in terms of if there was a black president of the NFL, what kind of power would he have?
Well, again, though, first of all, even as an NFL commissioner, the commissioner works for the owners.
Okay.
That's the problem. So the commissioner has power.
Okay.
He has leverage. No, let me correct that. The commissioner has leverage. The commissioner has influence. Owners got power. He works for them. The problem with the NFL is ain't nobody black in the room. Because when the 32 get together, you've never had a black NFL owner. So you don't have somebody black. See, it's just like when you have a board of directors. You used to have a whole bunch of all white dudes. And all of a sudden, black folks got on boards. Well, then the white folks on the board couldn't say the same stuff they used to say because you had somebody going like, hey, hell up. It's true. Hopefully you had a brother who would say that because you got some who are not conscious. Right. But the reality is, when black folks have had a seat at the table, we've been able, as Thurgood Marshall said, we've been able to bring all of our blackness to bear. Right. So the conversation now changes because we're here. For the NFL, when the owners go into a meeting, Goodell got to lead a room. He's staff.
But Roland, how many black athletic superstars in the NFL during their period of play or even after their period of play has raised the issues that you raised?
Oh, a number. A number. But here's the problem. Here's the problem. Again, there's a difference between influence, leverage, and power. So let me just use Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan is called the greatest basketball player of all time. Michael Jordan used to get pissed off with Jerry Krause and Jerry Reinsdorf in Chicago. Reinsdorf was sensitive to Michael Jordan's criticism, but he let him know, I'm the owner and Jerry Krause is the GM. So what happened when Michael Jordan came to D.C.? Abe Pollan owned the team. They sucked. They had never made money in their whole damn existence. Michael, how he walked and talked and how he rolled, ticked off Abe Pollan. In fact, when Michael was a player, when they had a strike, Michael lashed out at Abe Pollan and said, damn it, if you can't make money with the team, sell it. Abe never forgot.
Nope.
So Michael stops being in management. Michael, all of a sudden, goes back and play. Arena sells out. The Washington Wizards, from Bullets to the Wizards, made money for the first time ever.
Wow.
Michael says, I'm done playing. Michael says, I'm going back and get my job. Michael walks into the meeting with Ted Leonis.
Come on, brother.
Who's now the owner of the Washington Wizards. Ted Leonis to his right, Michael Jordan sitting right here. They sit across from Abe Pollan, and Michael says, I'm ready to come back to be head of the club. Now, Michael, we go another direction. We appreciate all your contributions. Yep. And in fact, Michael, here's a check for $10 million, and we thank you for all that you've done.
Remember the article, Roland?
Michael Jordan
sped out.
Michael Jordan sat there.
Come on,
Michael Jordan sat there. Was like, whoa, hold up. I'm Michael damn Jordan. I got 6 rings. Abe Pollan said, thank you very much. We go another direction. Michael Jordan walked out of the room, left the $10 million check on the table,
Come on, brother.
bolted out of the stadium, got in his Jaguar, top down, sped off the lot, mad as hell.
Mad as hell.
Abe Pollin taught Michael Jordan ass a lesson.
Sure did.
You might be a player, and you might be the greatest of all time. You got leverage. You got influence. My ass on the team, I got power. Why do you think Michael
drove away? What did he do?
Michael was pissed off.
Right.
You know what he did? No. You know what he did? He went to North Carolina and went to Chicago, and he said, I'm buying my ass an NBA team. He got close to owning the Milwaukee Bucks, and then Herb Cole decided to say, I'm going to keep owning the team. And then when Bob Johnson screwed the Charlotte franchise up, Michael came in, became the owner. That's the difference.
Yes.
Power is about who owns.
I get it.
And that's why they're called owners in the NFL.
I
Bro,
get
let me
it.
ask you a question. So individuals have influence, as you say. Kurt Flood did the same thing. No free agent in every free agent in professional sports need to know Kurt Flood's name when he bucked the St. Louis Cardinals and created modern free agency.
And very few of the current players
Oh, no.
went to his funeral.
That's exactly right. Did not. Let me
Why
ask you
is
a
that?
question. Well, I mean, they don't. This is where the ignorance of history is a burden. The labor is black and brown. What would happen if they exercise collective power? I'm thinking about Eric Reed,
That's
who's
what
been
I'm
drug
saying.
tested a billion times, and the union didn't say it.
I agree.
I'm just asking.
I agree with collective, but again, if you want to use your slavery analogy,
Yes.
this is how the system is set up. First of all, the NFL, out of all professional leagues, has the shortest career span. Okay? Shortest
correct.
out of baseball and NBA.
Yeah.
Shortest. Okay? Second of all, it's the only one out of the top professional leagues that does not have guaranteed contracts. Third, it's the one that has the most severe injuries long term.
That's true.
And so if the average NFL career is only 3.5 years, you are not going to sacrifice one of those years.
Get your money.
But again, it is
That's it. But here's the deal. And they know that.
That's right.
And here's the other piece. What they'll do is they'll say, okay, say something. Your ass play special teams. I'm going to cut you. They also, Colin Kaepernick was one of those top. Same Colin Kaepernick. They did, no, we're going to teach your ass a lesson. Okay? Colin Kaepernick is being whiteballed. He's being taught a lesson. That is a my name is Kunta. No, you're going to say Toby moment.
Yes, indeed.
They want Colin Kaepernick to say Toby, which is why when he had his deposition with the Houston Texans and the late owner Bob McNair, he wore his Kunta Kinte shirt to the deposition. That's what's going on. This is a power thing. Yes. So as long as no black person is ever sitting in an owner's box, you're not going to have anybody in those meetings checking all white owners. That's the reality of the NFL.
Well,
the
it's my
slavery
hope
metaphor that he uses is just, unfortunately, extremely perfect.
Which is why Bill wrote the book, $40 Million Slaves.
Yeah.
Well,
CJ, final comment before I deal with white supremacy in your party and the House, but go right ahead.
It is my hope when they do have the owners meeting that those African Americans who are minority owners of some of these teams participate in the owners meeting and have a very
They can't. They're not owners.
but have a frank conversation. So whether that's Venus and Serena Williams that have minority
Miami Dolphins, you got Kirby John Caldwell, who's a minority owner with the Houston Texans. You got very few African, right.
These people are not compassionate.
And they are compassionate.
Well, again, you got people there, but I'm just saying you got folks there. But the problem exists in terms of really, again, it all boils down to power. All right. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Hey fam, want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered, the blackest show on all of digital, cable, and broadcast. Check out our audio podcast. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. As Roland Martin Unfiltered. Press play. All right, let's go to Birmingham. In October, the CEO of the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute, Andrea Taylor, announced that Angela Davis was going to receive the highest honor of the Institute, the Fred Shuttlesworth Human Rights Award, saying, quote, "She is one of the most globally recognized champions of human rights, giving voice to those who are powerless to speak." And of course, the award is named after the pastor who led the civil rights demonstrations in Birmingham, who was instrumental in tearing down Jim Crow there. But now a different tune is being sung, and Angela Davis is not going to get that award. In fact, the annual gala where she was supposed to receive it, has been canceled completely. Why? Because of complaints after she was being announced, largely from the Jewish community in Birmingham and from across the country. Who is saying that? Well, Birmingham's Mayor Randall Woodfin. Before I read his statement, though, we need to read the actual statement, folks, of the Civil Rights Institute, because actually it makes no sense whatsoever to me, their particular statement. And so here it is. Here we go to my iPad, please. In September of 2018, the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute's Board of Directors selected Angela Davis to receive the prestigious Fred Shuttlesworth Human Rights Award at its annual gala in February 2019. In late December, supporters and other concerned individuals and organizations, both inside and outside of our local community, began to make requests that we reconsider our decision. Upon closer examination of Ms. Davis's statements and public record, we concluded that she unfortunately does not meet all of the criteria on which the award is based. Therefore, on January 4th, BCRI's board voted to rescind its invitation to Ms. Davis to honor her with the Shuttlesworth Award. While we recognize Ms. Davis's stature as a scholar and prominent figure in civil rights history, we believe this decision is consistent with the ideals of the award's namesake, Reverend Shuttlesworth. We regret that this change is necessary and apologize to our supporters, the community, and Ms. Davis for the confusion we have caused. We will move forward with a keen focus on our mission to enlighten each generation about civil and human rights by exploring our common past and working together in the present to build a better future. The associated gala event, scheduled for February 16th at Haven, has been canceled. Ticket purchasers will receive a full refund. Okay, the problem with this statement is it doesn't even say who complained. It doesn't say what remarks or comments that they use to justify rescinding the award. In fact, we called the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute today. No one answered the phone today. We wanted to find out the specific criteria to receive the Fred Shuttlesworth Award. Nobody answered. Alabama.com, AL.com, they have been trying to reach the board chair, the board CEO, the Civil Rights Institute CEO. None of them are talking. But Birmingham Mayor Randall Woodfin is. This is his statement. Quote, as I consider the controversy over the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute's decision to honor Dr. Angela Davis with the Fred L. Shuttlesworth Human Rights Award and the subsequent decision to rescind that honor after protests from our local Jewish community and some of its allies, my overriding feeling is one of dismay. I'm dismayed because this controversy might have been avoided entirely had it been handled differently. I'm dismayed because, as has been the case throughout Birmingham's history, people of goodwill behave reflexively rather than engaging in meaningful discourse over their differences and seeking common ground. Here's the issue. Davis is an outspoken supporter of the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement targeting Israel's treatment of Palestinians. That's a no-no for many Jewish groups in the United States, and they're doing their best to deny people with that point of view a chance to speak. Joining us right now is Roy Johnson. He's a columnist with AL.com, the only black columnist in the entire state of Alabama. Roy, here's what's just nuts to me. I got a notice about this on Saturday. And what is utterly confusing is that, and again, I'm looking at their statement. They don't say who complained. The Civil Rights Institute doesn't say on this close examination of her statements in public record, okay, if you're going to rescind the award, have the guts to say what she said that you object to. You've been trying to reach them. Any luck?
Well, you started right at the core there. You talk about somebody having guts. I mean, it's interesting that this award is named after someone who had the courage to stand up to those who tried to bomb him. His own house, Fred Shuttlesworth's house, was bombed 3 times. He was attacked as he tried to take his daughters to school and sent to the hospital. A man who displayed courage, and fittingly, the award is named after him. And yet, the people who have been entrusted with that award showed no courage in this instance, in not only rescinding this award, but then not having the temerity to come out and let us know exactly why. What parts of her record, all of a sudden, after 2 months, did not fit the criteria for the award. I spoke to people who were intimately involved with Fred Shuttlesworth, who knew him well, and they adamantly denied that this would fit the ideals that Fred Shuttlesworth espoused, as the BCRI board noted. They contradicted that totally and said this is something that showed that not only do they not know Fred Shuttlesworth, they certainly don't know Angela Davis as well.
And what is crazy to me is for the Civil Rights Institute to all of a sudden go quiet. Okay, you don't make a public announcement that you're going to honor Angela Davis, and also for folks who don't know, a woman who is from Birmingham.
Right.
Okay, so this is a daughter of Birmingham, and so to not have the guts to announce why you're rescinding the award, but then also this idea that, well, it doesn't fit the criteria. Okay, where's the criteria? Show me then what's the criteria for the Fred Shuttlesworth Award. Does the criteria say you can't criticize Israel?
Roland, this is a catastrophe, because certainly she would not have been the first honoree of the Shuttlesworth Award to be critical of Israel. Danny Glover has been critical of Israel. Harry Belafonte, last year's recipient, has been critical of Israel. So why now? Why Angela Davis? She would not have been the first recipient to make critical statements. And we're talking about the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute. Not only is this an institution in a city that is ground zero for change in America, but is a place where people from around the world come and discuss human rights, not only and learn what happened here and try to take it back to their own cities, their own states, and their own countries to try to emulate the lessons and try to have dialogue. The Civil Rights Institute has tried to bring people together, and they've undone all of that with this just catastrophic decision. The process was terrible. It was done behind closed doors. It was rushed. They have yet to reveal what the vote was on the board. I have put in a Freedom of Information request to get the minutes of the meeting so I could find out not only what the tally of the board was, but who voted for it. I understand that many of the African-American board members abstained from the vote, which to me is just as abhorrent as voting for it. So we're still looking into this. It'll be interesting to see the fallout. There's been a lot of criticism of the board chair. There's been some criticism of Andrea Taylor. And I think the next few days are going to reveal a lot more about how this decision was made and why it was rushed to be done so fast.
And for folks who, I tweeted out your column earlier, I'll send it out again. So they had a call late Friday night.
Friday at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
4 o'clock.
Nobody is supposedly paying attention.
4 p.m. on Friday, you have a call. It's not open. They go into executive session. That's where they vote, come out, announce the decision. We don't even know what the vote total was. And then there were a couple of non-voting members who were not on there. And first of all, as somebody who is on a board of directors of a nonprofit, even though that they are non-voting members, a board can't allow anyone they want into an executive session conversation. And those two members, including one of them is the mayor, were not allowed to be a part of this conversation, correct?
Absolutely. In executive session, voting members have to be there, but ex officio members who are non-voting members can or cannot be there. They were not invited. The other one that you did not mention is Odessa Woolfolk, who is another civil rights icon here. She is someone who was a elementary school teacher during the Children's Crusade, and so she tells us plenty about what went on during that Children's Crusade. And I understand that she is actually a friend of Angela Davis, and so she was not invited to be part of that conversation and part of that vote either. So the two non-voting members were not there. They voted on Friday night, and I didn't find out about it until about 7 o'clock Saturday evening when the Facebook event popped up on my phone and said that the event was deleted. And at that moment I said, uh-oh, something's going down.
I understand that others still plan on inviting Angela Davis to Birmingham to honor her. Have you heard anything along those lines?
There are a number of people who have reached out to her, churches, other organizations that are trying to bring her here either on that date, but it was February 26th, bring her here for that date or a subsequent date. So stay tuned to hear more about that and see if she does decide to accept one of those invitations.
Well, certainly keep us abreast. I would really love for somebody else to actually throw an event in a gala, invite folks actually to purchase tickets, and that money actually go to social justice organizations who are doing the work today, women's groups who are doing the work today, because this decision by the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute, it is weak, it is meek, it is impotent, and then for them not to have the courage to come out and publicly discuss it shows to me how weak they are, and I would not be surprised if a whole bunch of people who are black say, if that's how you want to treat Angela Davis, we're going to wash our hands of your institute, and feel free to go have the people who want to tell you what to do, then continue to fund you.
And it just boggles my mind. It's so unfortunate because the BCRI does do so much great work. Andrea Taylor, in her 3 years here, has rebuilt the infrastructure, has changed the museum, has given it a more global audience, and more people are coming to the Institute. And yet this one event, this one decision threatens to really undo all that, and particularly losing the base of support right here in this community. It boggles my mind that they did not see this coming, that they did not see the reverberations from this, particularly locally. And it just calls to mind those people who are concerned about a changing Birmingham, about whether outside forces are coming in to take over the city, if you listen to some. But this decision and the way it was transpired, the pressure that came from outside forces. I mean, imagine you telling another organization that they can't honor whom they want to honor.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's what this, you can certainly have a conversation. You can hear their grievances. But at the end of the day, if this is my organization and this honoree resonates with my audience, while I respect your opinion, I'm still going to move forward. This board did not do that, and this board is likely going to pay in a number of ways.
All right, Roy Johnson, AL.com. We appreciate it. Thanks a bunch.
Thank you, Ro.
I want to go to my panel here. Look, if you want an example of where people say folks who are Jewish telling black people what to do and controlling black people, hello, Exhibit A.
Yeah.
I mean, this to me is crazy. And not only that, even if they disagreed with her position, the Institute has decided.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They've decided.
This is what happened when you don't find your own freedom. Yeah. This is what happened when you depend upon outside sources for resources and to advance your own agenda. I think one thing that white America and non-black America has to understand and learn is that there is a unique black experience. And with that unique black experience comes reverence for figures within the civil rights movement, and figures that have played unique roles within the advancement of black people in America. Mm-hmm. Some folk that may be controversial to non-black people, like an Angela Davis, like a Louis Farrakhan, mm-hmm. To conservatives like a Jesse Jackson or Al Sharpton, as crazy as that sounds. But that's something that white America has to learn and has to cope with. I mean, these are people that we'll never turn our back on because, look, that's all we had at some point.
But to the point Roy made, Harry Belafonte has been very clear where he stands. Mm-hmm. He was honored last year. Yeah. Danny Glover, so many others, and these are people who are still on the battlefield today fighting these issues. This, to me, and again, here's the other piece. Okay, you want to make the decision? Okay, fine, make the decision. But don't put out some pissy-ass statement like they did that was bland. Oh, we looked at her comments in public record. Which comments?
Which public record?
What, have the guts to say it. And I would say, Andrea Taylor, you're the CEO. Don't run and hide. Don't sit here and not return phone calls and not return emails. Have the guts to come out and say, this is our decision. This is what happened. This is why we did it, and we stand by our decision. The board chair have the guts. The board members have the guts. What you have here is an institution that is absolutely weak.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, and I would even put more of the onus on the board because, frankly, the way a lot of our organizations run, this sounds like this is completely of the board's doing. I doubt the CEO was involved with.
But the CEO is a part of this.
I mean, she should answer questions, but I would say I would definitely go after the board chair and the board, because they're the ones who made this decision. And here's the danger in letting other people decide who we honor, okay? The bottom line is we have, as you mentioned, we have our own distinct history. And because of our distinct history, we have a particular I would say resonance with understanding what it feels like to be oppressed, no matter who the oppressor is. And so that is why you have a lot of African Americans, including myself, who are very, very sensitive to the oppression and the violence that our Palestinian brothers and sisters are facing right now. And if you have other people who are willing to fund your silence, you are not doing your duty. As an organization that claims to honor and represent civil rights and claims to represent and honor human rights, you are not doing your duty, not only to stand up for your own people in terms of Angela Davis and the community that you represent in terms of being able to sort of highlight our heroes, but you're also discounting the very legitimate beliefs that a lot of us have that maybe resonate with those of us with some of those who are not, in your favor as it relates to your funders. You have to be proud enough and you have to be strong enough in your ideals to remain consistent in those ideals, even in the face of threats that you might be receiving. And the fact that they didn't even mention in that initial statement who complained shows me that they were embarrassed, shows me that they were cowardly, and shows me that they knew they were wrong.
Here, first of all, Aaron, go to my iPad. Here are the board members of the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute. Mike Oatridge is the chair. Walter Bodie is the first vice chair. Janice Kelsey, secretary. Thomas L. Wilder, Jr., the treasurer. Doug Jones, immediate past chair. Not sure if that is Senator Doug Jones.
I believe it is Senator Doug Jones.
He's about to get a text from me right now asking if that's him. Jeffrey Bayer, Isaac Cooper, Bean Edwards, Michelle Elrod, Rosalind Houston, Danny Markstein, J. John Oros Jr., Jonathan Porter, Cameron Vile, and then, of course, Odessa Woolfolk, Chair Emerita. Again, she was one ex officio member. You have Andrea L. Taylor, President CEO. Then you have Mayor Randall Woodfin, who's ex officio. And then, of course, that is the Doug Jones, who is United States Senator. So y'all can go ahead and comment. I'm about to send him a text to see what his thoughts on this. Go ahead.
Say he probably already resigned after he got elected, so he's going to say he had no part in the decision.
No, but I just want to make sure that he wasn't on the phone.
Yeah, but I think, you know what would be nice, Roy? He's doing his for Freedom of Information Act. He should also try to get those donors, because then he can do a matrix of who's contributed, and then it would be obvious who put the pressure on the organization to change their decision.
I agree 100% with you, but I think we have to circle back to, for our organizations to thrive and to be successful and be 100% independent, you got to fund your own freedom.
Absolutely.
You have to develop your own donor base. You have to, but with that, you also have to develop the backbone to say, hey, if this is our history, this is what the literal reason why this organization, this museum, this institute exists, is to preserve the memory and spirit and history of the civil rights movement, so that generations that may not have lived through it can learn from it and apply it to situations of oppression down the line.
Right.
You cannot cave to oppression.
Right. Absolutely.
Well, and of course, I mean, this is, but to exert the influence, this board, if they want any credibility, they're going to have the courage to come out and say, this is why. Because not only you rescind the award, you cancel the event as well. And
it's going to hurt their future events.
Oh, no. Look, first of all, I can tell you right now, as somebody who has frequently gone to Birmingham, who has visited there. In fact, when we were last in Birmingham, we broadcast my show from there. And when I did ESPN, we did it from in front of the Institute. Until they answered these questions, I can tell you right now, I have no intentions on visiting the museum. on doing anything with the museum, because this to me is an abomination that you also are unwilling to have an open conversation about why you did it and who are the people who put the pressure on you.
Yep.
Okay, that actually, so I would advise y'all at the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute, you might want to actually be real open and honest and transparent with people, or this is going to get uglier. It's going to get a whole lot uglier because people are going to be demanding answers. And don't think for a second this is only going to be a Birmingham thing, because the story is actually going to get bigger. Because not only we're going to keep talking about it here in Roland Martin Unfiltered, then guess what? Y'all are going to be the focus of my Tom Joyner commentary on Wednesday. 7:15 a.m. Eastern. Y'all might want to tune in. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. About Birmingham and the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute. They are trying their best to stay quiet and ignore their decision to rescind the Fred Shuttlesworth Award that was supposed to go to Birmingham native Angela Davis. Well, that's not going over quite so well. The CEO, as well as the board chair and the board members, none of them still are speaking. They've been called out by lots of folks as a result of rescinding that award. Because various Jewish groups and organizations in Birmingham and beyond protested the award going to Angela Davis because of her support for a boycott of Israel. Now, Angela Davis, she has responded. First of all, she said she was actually stunned by the decision by the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute to rescind the award. She also released this statement. On Saturday, January 5th, I was stunned to learn that the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute Board of Directors had reversed their previous decision to award me the Fred Shuttlesworth Human Rights Award. Although the BCRI refused my request to reveal the substantive reasons for this action, I later learned that my long-term support of justice for Palestine was at issue. This seemed particularly unfortunate given that my own freedom was secured and indeed my life was saved by a vast international movement. And I have devoted much of my own activism to international solidarity and specifically to linking struggles in other parts of the world to U.S. grassroots campaigns against police violence, the prison industrial complex, and racism more broadly. The rescinding of this invitation and the cancellation of the event where I was scheduled to speak was thus not primarily an attack against me, but rather against the very spirit of the indivisibility of justice. I support Palestinian political prisoners, just as I support current political prisoners in the Basque County in Cataluna in India and in other parts of the world. I have indeed expressed opposition to policies and practices of the State of Israel, as I express similar opposition to U.S. support for the Israeli occupation of Palestine and to other discriminatory U.S. policies. Through my experiences at Elizabeth Irwin High School in New York City and at Brandeis University in the late 50s and early 60s, and my subsequent time in graduate school in Frankfurt, Germany, I learned to be as passionate about opposition to anti-Semitism as to racism. It was during this period that I was also introduced to the Palestinian cause. I am proud to have worked closely with Jewish organizations and individuals on issues of concern to all of our communities throughout my life. In many ways, this work has been integral to my growing consciousness regarding the importance of protesting the Israeli occupation of Palestine. The trip to Birmingham, where I was born and raised, to receive the Fred Shuttlesworth Award was certain to be the highlight of my year, especially since I knew Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth personally and attended school with his daughter Patricia, and because my mother, Sally B. Davis, worked tirelessly for the BCRI during its early years. Moreover, my most inspirational Sunday school teacher, Odessa Woolfolk, was a driving force for the Institute's creation. Despite the BCRI's regrettable decision, I look forward to being in Birmingham in February for an alternative event organized by those who believed that the movement for civil rights in this moment must include a robust discussion of all of the injustices that surround us. Angela Y. Davis, January 7th, 2019. The fact that we have reached out to the Civil Rights Institute, they have not responded. They have not responded to the local newspaper.
Yeah.
Roy Johnson is a columnist there. They've not responded. They will not reveal what the vote was, will not reveal who voted. Also, folks, yesterday I showed you their website, which showed that Senator Doug Jones was on his board of directors. I texted him last night, actually during the show. He responded after the show and said that he had resigned from the board of directors when he announced his candidacy for the U.S. Senate in May of 2017. So he's no longer on the board of directors. So he was not a part of that board vote on Friday. But it is still crazy to me for a Civil Rights Institute in Birmingham to make a decision to give her this award.
Because she'd be the perfect recipient.
And then come back and say, well, no, we're going to rescind it.
Right. No, I mean, and the reason that they're rescinding the award, I mean, she's long been an advocate, obviously, for civil rights, not just in the U.S., but also for other communities that she's deemed oppressed across the entire world. She even, in 2015, I think she wrote a book. It was a compilation of essays and speeches, and it was about, like, the struggles between, the connections of struggles between state violence and just oppression around the world.
Well, so all of this was known before. So that's
right,
what's
so
crazy to
she's
me.
Long been an advocate,
Exactly.
yes, for
And,
this.
you know,
so it's really just a
Davis
backlash, and it's kind
No,
of
hold on, finish it.
It's just, I mean, for lack of a better word, it's kind of corny. Like, I can't think of another way to describe it.
Go
like,
ahead.
It's kind of corny.
You know, I, a native San Franciscan, was there when Angela stood with all of her work. She's a lodestar for me. I know her personally, but also I begged Cecil Williams in 1969.
Right.
I begged him to go to visit her in jail, and he didn't let me go. I adore her, and she has been so much to all of us, not only about civil rights, about prisoner issues, about so many things. To do this is a slap in all of our faces as black women. And we black women have been slapped too often in this last year.
Malik?
This is a slap in the face.
Oh.
She deserves this award. Fred Shuttlesworth was a icon.
Right.
It is so amazing that they would do this. Let me stop because
Malik?
Yeah, so this is, and we've talked about it here. We talked about it with the Mark Lamont Hill comments. We talked about it with Kevin Hart. You know, this is the climate that we're in. So what we're talking about here is that some people were offended by things that she said.
But so
And we say some people. First of all, the mayor of Birmingham made it perfectly clear that there were Jewish organizations and individuals, clearly who are funders of the museum.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is the museum refuses to say specifically what
The
her.
Jewish
One
people get the stuff they
second. The museum specifically refuses to say what she specifically said.
Right.
In her own letter, she said she inquired they wouldn't tell her.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, how do you not tell the very person who you are rescinding? That makes no sense to me. Malik, please finish.
Yeah, so I don't know, what the rationale was, but this is one of those instances where
wait.
But people were offended because we're the climate that we're in now. Who gets to say that? Who gets to claim being offended?
Right,
by
and that's
something?
that's what is angry. Look, I've talked to a lot of black people in Birmingham.
But here's the deal.
And hold on, 1 second, Julian. There are black people in Birmingham who are angry, who are upset.
The mayor is.
That no, not just the mayor. I'm talking about there are black people who she is from there.
Dr. Davis.
Who has known her. Black people who have supported the museum. Black people who have given to the museum. And then, so not only do you rescind the award, you cancel the event, and then you are hiding your face because you won't even come out and own up to it. And that, to me, is more offensive. Final comment.
To be in favor of Palestinian human rights is not to be anti-Semitic. That's all I have to say.
But also have the guts to tell her why you were sending the award.
That.
All right, folks. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Hey, folks, coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered for Wednesday, January 9th, 2019. More drama in Birmingham over the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute's decision to rescind an invitation to civil rights and human rights activist Angela Davis. 3 of the top board members have resigned. The city council and the school board have passed resolutions praising Angela Davis, and now there's going to be an alternative event celebrating Angela Davis. Roy Johnson of AL.com will join us with all of the latest details. Also, folks, a new development in the R. Kelly case after the surviving R. Kelly documentary aired over the weekend in Chicago. The Cook County State's attorney, Kim Fox, she is asking folks with information that could lead to him being prosecuted to come forward. Look for my interview with her as we talk about the particular case. Donald Trump threw a temper tantrum that ended the meeting today between Democrats over the issue of reopening the government. Now, last night when he gave his wall speech, he threw out that black people, Latinos, are most impacted by illegal immigration. I have 2 experts, one conservative who says that is absolutely the case, another, an economist and labor expert who says, hold up, you're a little bit wrong on that one. We'll break it down for you. Also, folks, Congressman Ayanna Pressley, she had some tough words for Donald Trump on the floor of the U.S. House, and it was another CBC member who was presiding who had to gently let her know that that was not the place to criticize the president. We'll show you that video. Also, teachers in Los Angeles preparing for a major strike. We'll talk with Randy Weingarten of the American Federation of Teachers Union about that particular strike. Also, we continue to highlight the importance of HBCU professors with AT&T's Dreaming Black initiative. We'll talk with a professor from Morgan State who says the next Facebook or Twitter founder is going to come out of Morgan State. Folks, it's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now.
right, folks, we've been covering the drama out of Birmingham with the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute after they decided to rescind an award for Angela Davis. The decision was made on Friday. It has led to huge uproar in Birmingham. Now, the 3 top members on the board of directors, they have resigned as a result of that decision. Chairman Mike Oatridge, who works for Honda, First Vice Chair Walter Bodie, and Secretary Janice Kelsey are no longer members of the board. They have released a statement finally commenting on this issue. Joining us live from Birmingham is AL.com columnist Roy Johnson, who has been covering this. Roy, it is no shock that this is happening. I knew it was going to come down, and it came down today. They have been under intense pressure for the last 4 days since making that decision.
Well, as you said, there's no surprise that these shoes finally dropped, and I expect there will be more. This is a big blow to the Institute. It's a black eye that certainly extends around the world. The coverage has been global. You had to see some heads roll, and these were the first 3. I imagine there's going to be some reconfiguring of the board before this is all over, and certainly more scrutiny on a board that is now still clearly in the crosshairs of a lot of people in this city.
I was talking to some folks there, and they said, first off, that the majority of the board isn't African American. You have those 3 resignations, and then, of course, they released a statement where they acknowledge that the drama this was created in Birmingham.
Yeah, that's true. And I know some of the people on the board, and most of them are good people, and we're still waiting to figure out how they came to this extremely bad decision and what were the factors, what were the pressures that led them to do it, and how they could not see this fallout coming. That still has not been explained to us. We've not gotten behind the curtain enough to find out exactly how this came about. We just know it came about quickly. It came about due to pressure from the Jewish organizations, from many Jewish organizations in the city. Most of people that I've spoken with in the Jewish community were surprised that they canceled the gala. They certainly had the right to express their opinion and their misgivings about the honoree, and that is their right. But the fact that the honor was canceled, that the honor was rescinded, and that the gala was canceled caught many of them by surprise.
And, of course, the pressure also added by the fact that the city council and I think it was also the school district who both passed resolutions praising the work of Angela Davis. Roy, did you hear me there?
I did. I just heard. I didn't hear the last
the
part.
city council and the school board. I believe both of them they passed resolutions praising the work of Angela Davis. Correct?
Yes. Those organizations both did that very publicly. Yesterday, the city council, in an impassioned speech by one of the councilors, talked about the importance of Angela Davis and the importance of running your own institutions, and how the fact that if that had been a man, it probably would not have been done the way it came down. And then the school board gave its own resolution today. So organizations around the city are coming out in favor of honoring Angela Davis. And then, of course, as you mentioned at the top of the show, a coalition of local leaders, academics, business leaders, political leaders have come together and decided there will be an event celebrating Angela Davis on February 16th.
Let's talk about that. And it's not going to be a ticketed event. It's going to be open to the public, correct?
It's a grassroots event. They have not decided the venue. It's going to be a conversation with Angela Davis to talk about not just her legacy, but her work around the world now for human rights. And it'll be open, and it'll be an opportunity for everyone to come. I spoke with one of the organizations that sent a letter to the Civil Rights Institute saying that they asking them to reconsider their selection of her. And the head of that board, who said that they unanimously sent the letter, said they would welcome the opportunity to sit down with Professor Davis when she was here and perhaps start a dialogue to see if they could come to some common ground.
It's also, I believe, this also causes folks to confront this whole issue of black-Jewish relations. Of course, we recently saw Mark Lamont Hill, who was fired from CNN because of his public support for Palestinians. Of course, Angela Davis said in her own statement that was the reason why this decision was made, even though the Civil Rights Institute has yet to say exactly what comments from her public record that they say do not meet the criteria of the Fred Shuttlesworth Award. And are any folks talking about that, this whole idea of black folks and Jewish folks in Birmingham being at odds over issues like this?
Well, what's interesting is what people are talking about is that there are numerous coalitions between African Americans and people in the Jewish community working on various projects. This was an instance that I think caught many people by surprise. Certainly anyone has the right to express their opinion and object to anyone being honored, but I haven't run across anyone in the Jewish community here who expected that the BCRI would comply with their request and then cancel their event. So I think you're going to see more opportunities and more, maybe not through the BCRI, but see more events that are trying to bring people together to have an open dialogue about the things that matter to each organization, to each community, and see if there can be more of an effort to move forward in a positive way. The head of the board for the Birmingham Holocaust Education Center, which did send a letter to BCRI, said she hopes that something good does come out of this because every city needs it, and certainly Birmingham is one.
All right, Roy Johnson, AL.com. We appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
All right.
I want to bring my panel right now. We have Rena Shabarar, Republican strategist, also Joe Madison, a Sirius XM radio show host, Monique Presley, attorney, and of course we also have Bill Spriggs, economist, AFL-CIO, Howard University. Folks, again, this went from rescinding the decision on Friday to them not commenting. They still have not commented beyond these board members resigning. Now 3 folks resigning, lots of public pressure. Pretty stupid move by the Civil Rights Institute.
Very stupid move. And here we are in 2019 with an individual who, by the way, has world recognition. And, you know, it takes you back to you know, the 60s, maybe even the 50s. And of all places, Birmingham, Alabama. And I'm
a woman who's a native of Birmingham.
Yes, exactly. And I'm just so glad that Fred Shuttleworth isn't alive to see this, because I'm certain he would be outraged to know that his name has been besmirched like this.
Monique, you had Roy made a point about one of the council members talked about that they would have not done this to a male recipient. Now, what's interesting is that last year Harry Belafonte was one of the recipients, has been very critical of Israel. Danny Glover is a previous recipient, also critical of Israel. Those awards were never rescinded. Now is the case with Angela Davis.
Right. We see the misogyny and the sexism kicking up all over the place, and I call it the era of Trump. But we also see the just privilege and the exertion of power and privilege in much more of an entitled fashion due to the current climate. So I think that this isn't just about, obviously, Angela Davis. It's not just about Jewish-black relations. It's about a white power center that can flex its muscle, and it doesn't have to be on the conservative side. It can be on the liberal side as well, and that's what we saw happen here.
Rena, Bill?
Yeah, I would say, you know, what's most disappointing is that she's not being judged on, it's been said, the totality of her work. You know, that's really disappointing. And as a millennial, I got to put that hat on for a minute, because I think young people in this country, we grew up thinking our country's so diverse and that diversity of thought is encouraged. And last I checked, you know, this is the United States of America. It's not Israel. This whole defending Israel at all costs is so, it just is, it confuses me on so many levels, because I think I see it happening the most out of the right. I know it's happening on the left as well, especially last week with the talk of Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib and her comments, you know, highlighting again, she's a Palestinian woman. The conflict between Israelis and Palestinians, again, I remain so confused by why we can't inject our American ideals into this conversation and say, hey, this is wrong. Somebody should, again, we should talk about the fact that founding farmers, it was in that article, the AL.com article, that founding farmers have owned slaves. Why aren't we rescinding awards of all these people who have done all these controversial things? Why just Angela Davis? So it's very confusing for me. Again, I can't stop using that word.
Bill?
Well, I think, you know, we have to get back to what is it that she objected to.
Which they still have not said, and they would not even tell her.
Correct. And it creates division at a time in the progressive community. We don't need division. And if they were surprised or shocked that they got this reaction from the commission, then shame on them. Don't raise the issue if it's not going to be that serious to you.
Also, I appreciate that grassroots folks, Joe, have responded and are going to still say they're going to hold an event on February 16th to honor her.
And that's exactly what should happen. You know, most of these significant changes, all significant changes, quite candidly, always start from the bottom up. Yeah. And that's what this is an example of. And as the panel was talking, I just wonder how many of these people in Birmingham who object to whatever they object to and not telling anybody have been to Israel themselves, where even Israelis disagree over issues as it relates to the Palestinian and the Israeli conflict there. I've been to Israel, and I've met with people who have been both Israeli Jews, who have been Palestinians. Many of them have tried to work together. They often object. There's debate within.
This is one of those debates we can actually say there are good people on both sides. Yeah, I hate that phrase now, but it's kind of true, you know.
But I bet you after they see this podcast, I'll bet you anything, Roland. Now they're going to come up with some kind of explanation. But the reality is, you're right. It's going to happen anyway. She's going to be honored. She's worth listening to. I mean, this goes back to, remember when, I'm old enough to remember when the people rejected Angela Davis because they thought she was a communist.
Right.
You know, this is absurd in this day and age.
I'll tell you one thing that's not absurd, a lot of reaction to the Surviving R. Kelly documentary on Lifetime television last week. Now we know that the Fulton County District Attorney in Georgia is opening an investigation into R. Kelly, and also the Cook County State's Attorney, Kim Foxx. She has made a public call for folks to call her office for information that could lead to him being arrested and indicted. I earlier talked to Kim Foxx about that. Here's my conversation with the Cook County State's Attorney. First and foremost, you made this call yesterday for information with regards to R. Kelly. I would assume that was all based upon the response to the Lifetime documentary.
That's right. We had received a number of phone calls in the days since the documentary aired where people had raised concerns about what information they had and what was potentially could happen as a result. And so what we realized was one, there was not an open investigation, that people had a lot of information, but we would not be in a position to even have an investigation if folks weren't willing to share whatever information that they had. And so that is why we made the call, because there was this expectation that something would happen. But in order for anything to happen, we need the participation of the public.
Explain to folks statute of limitations, because that really speaks to what's going on here. We know in murder cases there's no statute of limitations, but when it comes to being involved with an underage girl, what are the statutes? And also, of course, we saw with the documentary that there were several individuals who are of age, and they had wellness checks, but they said, I'm fine. Is there anything that you can do? So explain to people, legally what you really can do.
Yeah, so the statute of limitations for felonies in Illinois is 3 years. There are specific statute of limitations depending on sex assault, sex abuse, domestic violence. And the laws have changed during the course of the last 20 or so years, where the sex abuse or sex assault cases now have a longer window, depending on what the law was at the time of the incident. So without going into the weeds, we're looking at anywhere between 3 and upwards of 25 years. And again, having not fully vetted some of the information that we've gotten, we're not just talking about incidents of sex with underage minors. We're talking about instances of domestic violence, sexual abuse, sex without consent, based on some of the preliminary information that we have. So there's no one statute that we're looking at. And again, depending on the time period, we can be talking about anything from a few months ago all the way back to 25 years.
Gotcha. So again, if it doesn't matter if somebody, let's say, is 35 years old today, if they were involved with R. Kelly or anybody else 20 years ago, you still have a period of time there.
Right, potentially. So that's why it's important that if anyone has information, that they bring it to us so that we can break down the time period in which the act had happened, and what the existing laws were at the time to see if we have any extensions in the statute. And again, I think it's really important because people are talking just about one component of this, which is age, but there is also questions that have been raised around consent and around domestic violence and the others. And so I think it's important that if someone has information that they feel is relevant, that they make the phone call so that we can vet that information out.
You also, in this case, you have to deal with the reality that, who can come forth? Is it a question of the alleged victim, or is it family members or parents? Because we saw in the case where he was tried, where you had some family members who said that the young girl in the video wasn't, they were able to confirm her identity, but other family members said that was not her. The young woman, she never testified, so she wasn't the one who came forward. It was with this videotape. And so explain that to folks as well, who can actually get, frankly, a case moving forward. Is it the person who was victimized, or could it be a family member?
Yeah, I mean, I think information that leads to additional information can come from anywhere. So it can be a family member, it could be a friend, it could be someone who witnessed something while they were out. To your point, if we are going to have enough information based on the facts, the law, and the evidence to see if there's a case that can be proven, certainly we would have to have an actual victim. Someone to say that this, in fact, did happen to me and can give context to when, where, how it happened. So launching, someone else can bring the information forward, but we will need to have an actual victim. The Constitution affords anyone the opportunity to confront their accusers. And I want to be very clear, our call for people to bring us information is not based on the assumption that Mr. Kelly will be found guilty. But we can't even get to the question if people are reluctant to engage us with whatever information that they have.
Last question. We know that based upon the documentary, there were people who were flown to other cities and states. If someone is currently residing in Chicago, but let's say something allegedly happened in another state, how do they, does that impact your jurisdiction? But also, let's say there's somebody who is living in another state and they were actually flown to Chicago. So explain that as well.
Certainly. So under Illinois law, we would be responsible just for those acts that happened here in Cook County, so Chicago and our surrounding suburbs. If someone is from another state, but they were here and an act happened here and they left and went back, it's where the act occurred, not where you were a resident. And so if something happened while you were in Illinois and you now live, in New York, you are more than welcome to give us a call and we can get that information. If you believe that something has happened in another state that had nothing to do with Illinois and you reach out to us, we can provide that information to the jurisdiction where that incident occurred.
All right, Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Roland. Have a good one.
Folks, the phone number that Kim Foxx wants you to call is 773-674-6492, 773-674-6492. And also, phone calls to sex abuse hotlines were up some 20% as a result of the Lifetime documentary. All right, folks, let's talk about Donald Trump, him lying about his wall. Of course, today he met with members of Congress and walked out because he was ticked off when Nancy Pelosi said, "We ain't paying for your damn wall." It's been a pretty busy 24 hours, of course, for Donald Trump. And last night, of course, he spoke to the nation. Pretty much a waste of airtime. Yeah, but earlier in the day, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, a new member of Congress, she was on the House floor, and let's just say she had a couple of words, pointed words to say to the Orange One.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in opposition to the occupant of the White House. Mr. Trump, you took an oath, just as I did 5 days ago, to protect and defend the Constitution and the American people. Sir,
All right, folks, not quite sure what happened there. We're going to try to re-cue that. Again, Ayanna Pressley, she's a new member of Congress who is from Massachusetts. And so, all right, so they tell me they got it fixed. All right, so go ahead and press play.
Mr.
Okay, all right, so they don't have it. All right, then, so that's so something wrong with the system. Well, y'all calm down in the control room, and so we don't have it there. I'm going to pull it up on my iPad just a second and actually play it. Monique, why don't you talk about your cousin?
You know, I couldn't be prouder of a black woman who gets 1 minute to speak and uses it for everything that it's worth, not just because she has the last name Presley and she's in my family. Am I proud? I am proud because she could have talked about anything and she spoke truth to power the way she's supposed to when there's more than one branch of government. I think it was time well spent, and it was worth the little tisk-tisk that she got from House leadership for doing it.
Joe Madison, these freshmen, they really don't give a damn about the normal way of Congress. They made it perfectly clear they're going to operate on their own.
Yeah, not giving a damn is an understatement. And basically that's how they got elected. You know, from the West Coast to the Midwest to the East Coast. It's really a new day. And the bottom line is a whole new attitude out there. Look, what do they have to lose? Let's be quite candid. They're 35th in a committee, so nobody's going to be paying much attention to them or giving them much power anyway. And as far as it appears, they're not trying to appease the leadership. They're dealing with their constituents. And that's what will get them reelected, to be quite candid. It's not going to be Nancy Pelosi, who maybe has got 2 more years in a leadership position. They're playing to their audience that brought them to Congress to do just what they're doing.
And Rena, folks want them to see that. I want you to comment when we get 1 second. I'm going to go and play this from my iPad. So here we go. Here we go to my iPad, please.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in opposition to the occupant of the White House. Mr. Trump, you took an oath, just as I did 5 days ago, to protect and defend the Constitution and the American people. Sir, you dishonor that oath. You devalue the life of the immigrant, the worker, and the survivor. I see right through you, and so do the American people. This has nothing to do with border security. Your shutdown, another Trump-generated crisis, has brought a tsunami of hurt to the American people. So today I rise to lift the voices of the unheard. I rise today on behalf of the families concerned about feeding their children because their WIC benefits will run dry. I rise today in solidarity with the thousands of workers with calloused hands and broken spirits working for no pay. I rise today in support of the survivor fleeing violent hands, seeking safety only to find the shelter door locked because of your shutdown. I rise today in support of the American people who believe in the promise of this nation and ask for honest pay for an honest day's work. Today I rise as one and I stand as thousands. Thank you, and I yield back.
Members are reminded to refrain from engaging in personalities toward the president.
Now, of course, chairing was former CBC chair, Congressman G.K. Butterfield. Rita, what the hell? First of all, personality toward the president. I don't know what that phrase even means.
You know, in this moment, checks and balances are so very needed and necessary. So I could see people saying, has she no concern or care or knowledge of really her place? She should stay in her lane. She should know, really, you don't engage in this kind of talk from the floor. But this is not a moment for that anymore. Frankly, it's really not, because it's time that we really let the American people know here in Washington that this is how our government works. And I really like that she spoke truth to power. She used her role as an elected representative to say something that concerns her about another branch of government that she's able to check on. So yes, she's one voice in a very large House of Reps, but it's good that she did it. Of course, conservatives are going to be angry. I, on the other hand, am I'm envious. I'm super envious. I caught a lot of flack last week on PBS. I said I admire people like Ayanna, people like Ilhan Omar. I even said Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. These women, gosh, I wish at least one of them were Republican. Just all of them are Democrats. And I haven't got one to say, here's a conservative woman. So, I'm in this moment very concerned about women from across the U.S., women across the ideological spectrum being represented in our government. But we should call a spade and say she's super impressive. I have heard in the past from conservatives that she is probably the most impressive of the youngest new crop of progressive young female Democrats that were elected. Only one point I would argue with you is that they still need Speaker Pelosi. She holds that power to fundraise.
First of all, she ain't going anywhere.
Come on now. They need her
First of all, she's not going anywhere.
Look, the reality is this, and you know, all that talk, that's great. Do you honestly think the people in Peoria, I always talk, because that's middle America, understood what Butterfield said? They don't care. I mean, he said...
I'll choose East St. Louis before I choose.
All right, let's pick East St. Louis. All right, I went to school in St. Louis. A lot of good friends in East St. Louis.
There you go.
They don't care. They don't have no idea what the procedure was, nor do they care. And they probably didn't even know who he was. They sat there and heard, and this is what.
And he had to. First of all, you know, GK was agreeing with her, but because he was presiding chair, he had to make the statement. But the bottom line, he was like, "Yeah, go ahead, girl, go ahead, keep saying that thing."
And don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong.
That was universal. I agree with that.
And you're right. I mean, Pelosi does hold the power. Yes, she will give them. She'll give them all an office in the corner, in the basement somewhere.
Because they're freshmen.
And they were going to get it in.
They're freshmen.
They were going to get it in. Anyway.
Now, folks,
they have good offices, and legislation comes from the people.
But the better
not from the
offices
committee.
when you've been that way.
Yeah.
That's the whole point.
Right.
That's the whole point. Let's just be real clear. That's just like who get a big piece of chicken.
Well, Ayanna has Shirley Chisholm's office. That's the best office you can get.
I got you. All right, folks. And last night, y'all, when Donald Trump gave his wall speech, you knew it didn't take him long to try to pimp black people. Press play.
But all Americans are hurt by uncontrolled, illegal migration. It strains public resources and drives down jobs and wages. Among those hardest hit are African Americans and Hispanic Americans.
The question is that true? Joining us right now is Dr. Carol Swain, author of Debating Immigration. She says that is the case. Dr. Bill Spriggs, an economist, professor at Howard University, also chief economist, AFL-CIO. Different perspective. So, Carol, I'll start with you. You say Donald Trump is correct that illegal immigration hurts black people?
I've been saying that for years. I wrote my first book, published a book with Cambridge Press in 2007. And one of the reasons that I published that first book was because the black leaders were not speaking to the facts. When you have an oversupply of labor, surplus labor, it hurts blacks, poor whites, as well as Hispanics. Anyone that has a low wage, low educated worker, they are hurt by the competition.
Okay. Bill Spriggs, you studied these numbers quite well, led the economics department at Howard University. What do you say to what Carol just said?
Well, let's separate a couple of things here. First off, the wall has nothing to do with illegal immigration. So spending $5 billion, if you want to help disparately impacted workers, that's not where I'd spend it. I'd spend it on education, job training. But let's separate that. Second thing is the issue immigration or is the issue illegal? And so if someone is here undocumented and cannot assert their full labor rights, then yes, that hurts everyone in the United States, all hues, because those workers can't assert their rights as workers. But do their numbers and do immigrants hurt? That's not true. Here's the case. Immigrants create demand. So if you look at cities that have been severely hurt, like Flint, Michigan, this is not from immigration. This is from General Motors deciding we won't make auto parts in the United States. If you look at New Orleans before Katrina, black people had no competition from immigrants, but had horrible jobs, horrible wages, and died in the flood because they didn't have transportation to leave the flood. So where you don't have immigrants does not mean that black people prosper. When you have immigrants, you create demand. What do we do as a people? Disproportionately, black people are employed in transportation. If you show me a community that's shrinking and dying, they don't have public transportation, they're not hiring bus drivers, they're not hiring subway engineers. So we gain jobs from having increased demand. New York City is vibrant because of immigration. If you look at Los Angeles, it's vibrant because of immigration. So there is a plus to immigration. Is it true that those with the least amount of education might be competition? Well, yes, but African Americans overwhelmingly are high school graduates or more. In fact, if African Americans are overwhelmingly higher educated workers. 45% of unemployed blacks are high school education. Another 48% have more than a high school education. Only a small percentage of unemployed black people are dropouts. The reason African Americans face a problem in unemployment is because if you are a white high school dropout, you have the unemployment rate of a black person with an associate's degree.
Yes, sir.
Carol?
That's why we have a problem with unemployment.
Carol, go ahead.
I'd like to speak to, Yeah, I'd like to speak to the larger issues that he's referring to. Immigration has been out of control for decades, and the wall is not meant to solve all the problems. That's just one component. We need to totally reform our immigration laws. We need to do something about the people who overstay their visas.
And
40% of the undocumented persons in the country are people who overstayed their visas.
But Carol, I want you to respond to what Bill said. He laid out, he talked about New Orleans, talked about New York and LA.
Yeah, I heard all of that.
Okay, so I want you to respond to that where he says that, okay, so respond to what he says in terms of it not hurting black people. Go ahead.
Yeah, there are communities that, parts of Detroit and different places where immigrants have moved in and they've set up businesses. That's not relevant to the discussion about what the impact immigration as a whole has on the black community and low-wage, low-skilled workers. And in those communities where you have lots of immigration, even if the immigrants are working 3 and 4 jobs, as many of them are, they're not making enough money to not be poor. And so that's a greater burden on the education system. And there have been studies to show that blacks are getting worse education now because all the focus is on trying to educate people from many different languages.
Wait.
I'm speaking to it. I'm speaking to what he has to say.
Hold on, Carol. You just said there are many different studies that show that the money is going to educate folks.
No, I'm telling you that I want to deal with what he discussed.
Right.
You all can have all the fun you want later,
I do too.
Now,
Carol, first of all, that's why.
This is important.
Carol, hold on. Carol, that's why you're here and Bill is here. I'm the one who booked the segment, so I know why you're here. Now go ahead and finish your point, then I'm going to Bill.
Then.
Well, you talk literally for 2 straight minutes, but go ahead.
See, what we really need to be concerned about is the overall impact on the communities. When you have large numbers of undocumented persons or people that don't speak the languages, it impacts the schools.
No. But Carol, how does that impact black people? No, the discussion.
It pushes them. It affects their ability. Like now, all of those people that we are allowed to stay, they're going to be competing for housing with black people and other poor people, and so it affects the housing. It affects every segment of society, and the people hurt the most are not just black people, but low-wage, low-skilled Americans.
Bill,
and it's time for us to put Americans first.
Bill, please respond.
So, the increasing demand for housing can be a good thing because it increases demand for the services that go with it, which means you create jobs. If you look at Appalachia and you look at dying parts of rural America, their complaint is no one wants to live here. We don't have the space or the economy to grow, and our kids are leaving. In many of those places, the only people who have come in to keep those rural, isolated places alive have in many cases been immigrants. So it's not this competition that you suggest. What we do get are from people who want to continually pit worker against worker, not increasing the size of the economy in response to a growing labor force. And so the problem isn't having workers, the problem isn't raising wages, the problem is not maintaining labor standards, and that's the problem that we have right now. We have to do a better job of improving labor standards, and yes, if we granted those workers status so that they could fight with their employers, so that they didn't fear being deported, if we could regularize them, then yes, those workers would be a plus to the economy. It hurts to lower labor standards for any set of workers, whether it's African Americans returning from being incarcerated who must work at any wage or face going back. It's bad for any set of workers to be put in that position of a disadvantage versus their employer. And we have to level the playing field. We have to give workers the right to bargain and to negotiate. And of course, if workers aren't here with status, that does hurt them. But the key is, if you want to be in a community that's vibrant, that's growing, where the economy is expanding and creating opportunities, you have to have more people. The birth rate to native-born Americans, white and black, has been declining. And so if America is going to grow, it's going to have to grow from having more people from many different sources.
All right,
we
Carol,
just have to be open to that.
Give you the final word, go.
I think that we need to look at the immigration problem as a whole, and that we need to reform immigration. And I think the wall is one part of it. And I think we need to be fair about the things that President Trump has done that's benefit Americans as a whole. And so my position is that we need the barriers. We cannot absorb all the people who want to live here in America. If we have open borders, then most of the world would want to come to America. Many people, there have been surveys about this.
Okay.
And so I think the situation is much more complicated than it's being portrayed.
Well, first of all, we went into detail. I thought Bill was pretty damn specific. Laying
certain
those
aspects
things.
of it, but not. It's much more complicated than
Yeah,
we lay it out there. That's one part of it.
But Carol, I was waiting for you to offer these other stuff that you were talking about.
And I'm trying to do the best I can in a situation that's clearly hostile towards anyone that's conservative.
Carol, hold up. Let me help you out. Now, I used to see you on Lou Dobbs' show. Yes. It's two people who have been talking, you and Bill. Okay, this is not hostile. No, not Carol. This is not hostile. It's not like the whole panel here. So please don't try to jump to that old conservative tactic of, oh my God, it's a hostile environment.
Well, I mean, I listened to the show before I came on, and so I heard nothing positive about the president or about conservatives.
Carol, first of all, Carol, this discussion had nothing to do with Donald Trump. This discussion was about what he had to say about black people and Latinos being hurt by immigration.
He's absolutely right. They are hurt by immigration.
And that's why I offer you the opportunity to say it. Now, if you want, but Carol, hold on, Carol, here's very simple. Bill offered a litany of details, and you had the opportunity to do so. Now, if you couldn't get it done in time, that ain't on me.
I have a full book on it. So if you want to be educated about it, you can read the chapter that has to do with the Black Caucus, black unemployment, and the impact on American workers.
Okay, Carol, all right, but here's the deal. So we had no issue discussing this, but this was not hostile. So try that on somebody else's show. You had an opportunity and was given it to be able to make your points, but it wasn't hostile. Nice try.
Roland,
it didn't work.
It's great seeing you.
All right, Carol.
And take care.
All right, you take care. You have a good one. All right, then. Rena, go. I know you want to go ahead. I know you want to go real quick. I'm going to go to Randy Weingart next, but go ahead.
Let me go real quick because I'm a conservative. I don't support the wall. I don't think we have extremely porous borders. You know, I just think the arguments you made are those that Republicans should embrace. Talking about competition, the markets. I mean, this is something that Republicans should really applaud. Is that there's credo to the argument that honestly, there are some groups that are faring badly because our cities are dead. I am the daughter of legal immigrants, a surgeon that immigrated to southern West Virginia in '71 because of the coal mines, and a woman who was a lawyer and did not practice there. It was the gold mine, my mother said. The coal mine was the gold mine. Why? Because there were jobs. And now that county that I was born and raised in is the epicenter of the opioid epidemic.
Right.
Why? Why? There's no jobs. People don't want to leave there.
There you go.
I was one of those kids who left. Now my brother's gone back. We inject into the economy. We are new Americans, but that's what happens. That argument you made, it's just practical. And I'm not hearing Carol. I'm just not. I'm sorry,
you can't
Carol.
just say read my book. So real quick, Monique, then Joe. Then I got to go to my next topic.
All right. I just want everybody to not miss what Trump does and how it just worked in this episode. He tells the white man to be afraid of everybody of color because we're the ones taking the jobs. Then he gets on there and tells the blacks and the browns to be afraid of the illegals because the illegals are going to take the jobs. It is peddling hate and it is peddling fear and it's lies. The statistics prove what we all know. Black people are coming out with so much education that they do not want the domestic worker jobs that the illegal immigrants and the legal immigrants are coming and taking in the workforce. They are not taking jobs.
Ain't no white folks gonna be out there picking oranges and lettuce. Joe, go ahead real quick.
Education is the currency of the 21st century. And what you see coming to the United States are usually people who lack education. And that's not just happening in the United States, that's happening all over. But isn't it amazing that he opens up his speech yesterday saying unemployment is hurting blacks, but in the same breath, when he gets in front of other people, he says this is the highest employment statistics that we've had in the history of the United States. And then finally, let me say this. If you really want to deal with this issue of employment and who gets hurt, here's what you ought to do. You ought to frog march the owners of these businesses who sit up here, know these folks are illegal, underpay them, and the reason they hire them because they're illegal, because they can't complain.
I'm sorry, you mean like the person where they forged documents at his golf course in New Jersey, or the guy,
the occupant.
The guy in the White House who did the very same thing, and then down there in Florida at Mar-a-Lago, they keep saying, "Hey, we can't hire any Americans. Can we keep hiring folks from outside the country?"
Absolutely. And my mother-in-law, God bless her, and her whole family came from Oklahoma after the Dust Bowl, went to California, worked in the vineyards, and then what happened was they complained about the working conditions. And as soon as they complained about the working conditions, they got fired.
Boom.
And then who took their place? And these, by the way, were educated African Americans who had degrees from places like Langston.
But they were frozen out of other places. That's the only place where they could work.
That's absolutely right.
Exactly. All right, first of all, Bill Spriggs, thanks for breaking that down for us. We appreciate that. Now let's talk about the issue of labor unrest in Los Angeles. 735,000 students in the L.A. school system, 30,000 teachers, the budget nearly $8 billion. But the teachers are set to go on strike on Monday. Why? Why are they striking? Joining us right now is the head of the American Federation of Teachers Union, Randy Weingarten. Randy, how you doing?
I'm good, Roland. How are you?
Doing great. Now, we have seen
It was great to hear the last panel. Thank you.
Well, yeah, it was so volatile, just, all that little nonsense Carol was talking about. But so let's break this thing down. In the last couple of years, we have seen teachers use the power of strikes to get, frankly, what they need and their demands. And so we saw, of course, in Oklahoma. We saw in West Virginia. We saw in Oklahoma. We saw in West Virginia them go on strike. Why are they seeking to go on strike in Los Angeles? What are the reasons?
So let me just say initially that nobody wants to go on strike.
Right.
And a lot of people in the last few days have been saying, is this a strike wave? No, it's not a strike wave. The last thing teachers want to do is go on strike. There's been 20 months of negotiations. What the LA teachers and paraprofessionals are saying is that give us the conditions we need to succeed with kids. Our class sizes are 40 to 50. We don't have nurses in schools. We don't have guidance counselors. There's more armed guards than there are guidance counselors in schools. And at the end of the day, you're right, there's an $8 billion budget. There's a $2 billion reserve. And the state has a lot of money that Gavin Newsom wants to give out to districts as well and deal with education issues. But Austin Butner refuses to negotiate.
Okay, first of all, for folks who don't know, who don't know, who's Austin Butner?
Sorry, he is the superintendent of schools. And in fact, the first time he ever came to a bargaining session was Monday after a strike date was set. And so what the union has done is they've tried to actually do everything. They've gone through fact-finding. They've waited a long time. And it was only when a strike date was set that the school system actually got serious and actually made a proposal on Monday. Now, they were bargaining all day today. Hopefully they'll bargain all day the next few days. But it actually takes two parties to try to solve things. And the school district really is focusing on dismantling, destabilizing, and crying poverty rather than giving teachers and kids the conditions they need for kids to succeed.
So
Joe
what specifically are the top 3 or 4 demands of teachers in the LA school system?
Guidance counselors in schools, nurses in schools.
So let's stop right there. When you say guidance counselors in schools, what is the current state? Are there guidance counselors?
80% of the schools, 80%. This is a school district where 80% of the kids are poor. 80% of the schools do not have a full-time guidance counselor or a full-time nurse.
Not one?
They do not, 80% do not have a full-time nurse or guidance counselor. Let me fast forward to the charter school that I help run in New York City that has a 100% graduation rate, public high school in the South Bronx with a 95 to 100% graduation rate for the last 5 years. We made a choice to actually have one guidance counselor per 100 children. Not one guidance counselor for 1,000 children, but one for 100 children.
And how many students in that school?
In that school?
In
we
New
have
York.
400 high schoolers.
So you have
500 high schoolers.
So you have
we have one. Yeah. And what I'm saying is, if you understand that emotional well-being and meeting children where they are is incredibly important, you have to deal with the challenges that kids bring.
Got it.
So that is the number one demand. The number two demand is lowering class size enough. I'm a high school teacher. My top class sizes were about 30. If you are a high school teacher with 100 kids, that is a lot, and you want to give them individual attention, that's a lot of kids. The class sizes in LA are 40 to 50. So how are you as a high school teacher going to be able to individually meet the needs of kids?
Got it.
These are the top two demands.
So
what's happened is that the school district doesn't want to deal with these now because the public now understands that these are the demands. There's a lot of public support for the teachers and for the paraprofessionals. But number one, teachers want to be in their classrooms, but they want the conditions that kids need to succeed.
All right, Randy Weingarten, the head of the AFT, we certainly appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, real quick to our panel, just as I said, we've seen teachers use their power to increase their wages in West Virginia, in Oklahoma, and in fact, several of them ran in Oklahoma and beat a lot of those Republicans, Rena, in Oklahoma, who keep saying, "Oh, I support education," for voting against teachers.
Yeah, that's the thing is, sometimes the talk doesn't match the walk, and that's a problem. Unions have typically been pretty unpopular with conservatives, but I think those notions are changing now. With the younger set of conservatives, those especially who are working in education, they understand that collective bargaining is the only way you can change some of what's happening. And striking is probably one of the best political activism tools in the kit. And I just really, I was sad to see what happened in my native West Virginia, but I just didn't see any other way that those teachers could have seen a raise. It just felt like there was just too much pent-up frustration within the governor's office, within the offices of those state legislators. They were just not going to act unless those teachers came and said, we are striking.
Joe.
So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in other states. But in my home state, though I'm a conservative, I support what happened.
Well, it not only happened in your home state, it also happened in Arizona. It's going to happen in California. And the reason you also have to keep in mind, they have support from the parents. the community. And when you multiply that, when you not only have union dues-paying union members, but then when the parents understand and agree what they're fighting for, there was nothing unreasonable about what they said. And what's so crazy is that you'll find that most conservatives probably were educated in public schools.
That's right.
They were educated in public schools. You mentioned Lou Dobbs earlier, because I used to go on his show too. And he swears by the fact that public education was the greatest thing that ever happened to this country. And he's absolutely right.
Well,
this is what separated America from the rest of the world.
Great point.
Clearly, he lost his damn mind since he left. But Monique, real quick.
Right. I hope people will reach out and support this, because these teachers weren't asking for money.
That's right.
They were asking for tools that had nothing to do with their individual salaries or insurance or anything like that, so that the students can succeed. I know in my high school, there were hundreds of us, but there were at least 7 counselors. You got your assigned counselor. Right. And if you're talking about kids who are already in lower socioeconomic conditions, if they can't get to see a counselor, if there's 50 of them in a classroom, if they don't have parents who are able to support them, where are they?
And the purpose of the counselor is to help them make college decisions, job readiness decisions, and you got to have that. Makes no sense whatsoever. Folks, we talked about education. That is, of course, the most important thing when it comes to HBCUs, not the bands, not pledging, not anything else. And so we've teamed up with AT&T for a series of stories about HBCU professors called Dream in Black. Today, we visit Morgan State University in Baltimore, where the whole issue is about technology. Dr. Cornegay.
Yes, sir.
How's it going?
Great.
What do you do?
I'm a hardware hacker, so we really a tinkerer. I tinker with things, most likely. More often electronic devices, and to figure out how they work and what their weaknesses are.
How did you dream big? How did you think about the possibilities of what you can do with that and turn into a career? Were you thinking about that at an early age?
I used to have crazy dreams back then, and I never understood what they were until much later, until I got to college, maybe. But I always would dream about numbers and binary numbers, number sequences. So I would always dream. So and that's probably what prompted me to start out as a math major. So I started out as a math major in college. And then my sophomore year, my math professor pulled me aside and said, well, what are you going to do for the summer? And I said, well, I don't know. So she said, well, here's 2 opportunities. And so she said, oh, you can go to Prudential. The other option was to go to Bell Laboratories and to do some engineering stuff. I said, cool, I've never done that. What is engineering?
So it was officially called engineering, but for you growing up, it was called tinkering.
Yes, yes, yes.
And so you go to Bell Laboratory?
Yes, I did. I went to AT&T Bell Laboratories.
What was it about it that sort of just blew you away? That caused you to say, oh man, there are no limits here. That I could this thing could go anywhere.
It was a number of things. It was the place, the energy of the place, the innovation. This is a place where creativity, ideas come to life. And they created this environment, and they had the tremendous resources, and you had all these brilliant people, especially people that looked like me, who were engineers. Upon graduation, I moved back east, went to work for IBM, T.J. Watson Research Center. I was one of the 3,000. I was only 4 African-American research staff members.
Talk about why it's important for us to encourage not just young folks, but just encourage people to dream big.
If you don't dream, you will never fulfill your destiny. But you have to see yourself, and you have to project it, and you have to speak it into existence. But first, it starts with the visualization.
Mm-hmm. Is it important for you in what you're doing to get students to understand that they have to think bigger, broader, not and once exposed that they may have thought their future as an HBCU student was this, and really what you're seeing is no, it's
oh yes, well
it's you can actually box it.
The next Mark Zuckerberg is going to come from Morgan State University, from this lab. This is someone who's going to think big and have some sort of lead, come up with this innovation that will lead to the next social media craze. So I think I'm always encouraging them to think big and to go beyond. And I give them a lot of latitude, but I expose them to the different aspects of our business, the academic. They do internships so that they, they're pulling their own red wagon, but ultimately I do have some that have that entrepreneurial spirit. So I encourage them, I put them in opportunities where they can flourish and grow and introduce them to the right kind of people, because we need that.
All right, folks, for more information, go to att.com/dreaminblack.
We have to create an art for liberation and for life. Artist Elizabeth Catlett.
All right, folks, HBCU Giving Day. Universities, Allen University, founded in Cokesbury, South Carolina in 1870 as Payne Institute by a number of ministers of the African Methodist Episcopal Church. In 1880, it was moved to Columbia and renamed Allen University in honor of Bishop Richard Allen, founder of the African Methodist Episcopal Church. If you want to give to Allen University, just simply go to allenuniversity.edu. That's allenuniversity.edu. All right, so we certainly support that. Last bit for our panel here, I'll do something different. Each one, you got a minute to talk about whatever you want to talk about. What you got? Raina, you first.
This whole segment got me thinking about really just women in tech and women of color in tech. There's a great woman, Reshma Sajnani, who ran in New York many years ago for Congress, but started Girls Who Code. It's a great organization doing great work to get more young women into tech. I was appalled at some figures I saw last year that said that 50% of employees at Google and Apple are still white, and 83% of tech executives are white. So we really need people of color in these tech fields. It's going to happen through efforts like Reshma's, which is Girls Who Code. So I hope more young women will get involved in STEM careers, particularly at HBCUs.
Joe?
I think that on Martin Luther King Day, instead of so many breakfasts and awards handed out to people, that it really should be a mass demonstration in this country, given the fact that 800,000 workers, people who are not working, or let me put it this way, working and not getting paid. The last time I checked, that was slavery. And that we should not allow this president to blackmail the United States of America, because that's exactly what he's doing. This is blackmail. But I would call on America, like Martin did, that on his birthday, we should have a massive demonstration. And I think organizations, HBCUs, fraternities, you name it, religious organizations, young people have something they call flash mobs. I've seen 2,000 young people show up to have a snowball fight. I think we can show up to protest against what's happening with these unemployed dedicated public servants and their families.
And of course, that weekend, MLK weekend, will be the Women's March taking place, mass demonstrations all across the country. But you're absolutely right, because he died fighting for sanitation workers. Monique?
I just want to offer a word of encouragement for people who may feel like they don't have a voice. We're 9 days in now to 2019, and some ended 2018 feeling like they were stifled and choked, and what's going on in today's politics is affecting them, but there's nothing they can do about it. That is 100% not true. There is no preacher that has to be without a pulpit these days. There's no politician that has to be without a platform. In the age of social media, there is always a way for you to have your voice heard. Get up, stand up, speak out, and do something about an issue that you care about. It only takes one person to make a majority if you push to join somebody else. So I would like to see everybody step forward and take action in 2019.
All right, folks, here's my final comment. Earlier, we started this show off talking about the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute and them rescinding the award from Angela Davis. Today, 3 of their board members resigned. I dare say any board member of the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute who actually voted to rescind that award, they should resign because they embarrass the legacy of Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth, somebody who Angela Davis knew and went to high school with his daughter. The reason I say that is because for you to sit here and bow down to pressure when you're recognizing a daughter of Birmingham, somebody who has been on the front lines of human rights, just because you disagree with them calling for a boycott of Israel, that simply isn't enough. And then to put out a deceitful statement stating that on further review of her record, that she did not meet the criteria of the award. First and foremost, I went to your website. You don't have the criteria of the award on your website. You haven't even released that criteria. Second of all, you have yet to even say why the award was being rescinded. What that says to me is that you were bowing down to pressure. What that says is that there clearly had to be some Jewish donors to the museum who said, if you don't rescind the award, we're not going to cut you a check. Well, sometimes there's some folks who checks you don't need. And in the case here, you actually have done more harm to the legacy of the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute than you actually did any good, because not only did you cancel the award, you canceled the gala that went along with it. Maybe the lesson here is that for the folks sitting on the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute, that you might need to go back to your roots. You might need to go back as to the people who you were so-called honoring with this particular institute, the folks who were fighting for human rights, the people who were fighting for labor rights, people who were fighting for dignity. That's really what is missing here. But no, what you actually have is a bunch of corporate shills who are sitting on a board who made it look real good on their resume, and they were supporting black people in civil rights. And now what you've decided to do is actually diss somebody who should have been honored years ago. But see, you didn't do this to Harry Belafonte. You didn't do it to Danny Glover. You didn't do it to the other folks who have been critical of Israel. And this notion that somehow Israel can't be critiqued is nonsense. Any nation can be critiqued. In fact, I recall that the fact that Israel was supplying weapons to the South Africa regime during apartheid. What does that actually say about Israel when it comes to black people? Now, this is not a commentary about Israel, but what it is about is the integrity of honoring people, especially black folks, who've been putting it on the front lines for years. See, I can remember when Andrew Young was fired as UN ambassador because he had a secret meeting with the Palestinians. He was trying to broker peace in the Middle East, but there are those who said, no, we don't want that. And so President Jimmy Carter had to release him. I remember when Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. was highly criticized because of his comments about Palestinians when he ran for president in 1984 and 1988. The reality is that this here, Palestinians and folks who are Jewish in Israel deserve respect, deserve a place to live in peace. But it is nonsense to somehow say that because you disagree with the policies of a country, that you can't even be honored in your hometown. I really hope on February 16th, they have a jam-packed event where they have 2 and 3 times the number of people who normally attend the Civil Rights Institute's gala. I really hope it's 2,000 and 3,000. I hope young people turn out for the conversation with Angela Davis. I hope older folks turn out. And I hope the people there also use that event to rekindle the spirit of Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth, a black man who did not bow down to any bigot there in Birmingham. What is the lesson here? I keep telling y'all, you got to fund your own freedom, because when somebody else is paying for your freedom, then they control what you do. They control what you say. They control who you honor. Now, whether they are Jewish, whether they are white, whether they are black, the bottom line is here. Sometimes you got to have the courage to tell people, hell no, we disagree, respectfully. That's what the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute should have said, and they didn't. And now they've made their jobs a hell of a lot harder because they chose to be hard-headed. I say, lesson learned. Folks, be sure to support Roland Martin Unfiltered by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We want you to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give supports this show and the work that we do. And so we thank all the folks who have given. Tomorrow we should be running, or is it today, guys? We'll be running the video with all of our donors, and we'll be, as folks give, we'll be adding those each week. Again, honoring you who have supported this show. Again, go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. If you also missed our conversation last night with the cook, Michael Twitty, about the history of black folks in food, go to our YouTube channel. It's a great conversation. You don't want to miss that. That's at youtube.com/Roland S. Martin. I want to appreciate Bill Spriggs, who was here. Rena, thanks a bunch. Joe Madison, thanks a bunch. Monique, thanks a bunch. And go ahead. You wore your damn shirt, so I know you go ahead, show your shirt. Because, see, you said this on the show last time with Malik. Y'all go ahead and zoom in. And Monique is selling this shirt. And so she should be giving a cut to the show. But go ahead. Y'all go ahead. We got robotic camera. Zoom in. Zoom in. Go ahead.
Are You Finished was birthed on this show. Thanks, Ro.
Yeah, so
add it to my list.
Are you pausing or are you finished? Remember, that's what she jammed up Malik on the show. And so she said, where can I get the shirt? Come on, sell it.
You can go to Monique Presley on Shopify and get the shirt. Or just go to my Instagram page at Monique Presley, and it's in the link.
Okay, if you just put it on MoniquePresley.com and just say go there, that's the easiest thing in the world.
Go to my Instagram, follow me, and then get a shirt.
Lord have mercy. I got to teach some people entrepreneurship. All right, y'all. We appreciate all of y'all watching. Be sure to, again, follow us on Facebook, Periscope, and YouTube. Click live notifications so when we go live, you will be notified by that as well. So thanks a bunch. Got to go. Holla! All right, folks, we've been covering the drama out of Birmingham with the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute after they decided to rescind an award for Angela Davis. The decision was made on Friday. It has led to huge uproar in Birmingham. Now, the three top members of the board of directors, they have resigned as a result of that decision. Chairman Mike Oatridge, who works for Honda, First Vice Chair Walter Bodie, and Secretary Janice Kelsey are no longer members of the board. They have released a statement finally commenting on this issue. Joining us live from Birmingham is AL.com columnist Roy Johnson, who has been covering this. Roy, it is no shock that this is happening. I knew it was going to come down, and it came down today. They have been under intense pressure for the last 4 days since making that decision.
Well, as you said, there's no surprise that these shoes finally dropped, and I expect there will be more. This is a big blow to the Institute. It's a black eye that certainly extends around the world. The coverage has been global. You had to see some heads roll, and these were the first 3. I imagine there's going to be some reconfiguring of the board before this is all over, and certainly more scrutiny on a board that is now still clearly in the crosshairs of a lot of people in this city.
I was talking to some folks there, and they said, first off, that the majority of the board isn't African American. You have those 3 resignations, and then, of course, they released a statement where they acknowledge that the drama this was created in Birmingham.
Yeah, that's true. And I know some of the people on the board, and most of them are good people, and we're still waiting to figure out how they came to this extremely bad decision and what were the factors, what were the pressures that led them to do it, and how they could not see this fallout coming. That still has not been explained to us. We've not gotten behind the curtain enough to find out exactly how this came about. We just know it came about quickly. It came about due to pressure from the Jewish organizations, from many Jewish organizations in the city. Most of people that I've spoken with in the Jewish community were surprised that they canceled the gala. They certainly had the right to express their opinion and their misgivings about the honoree, and that is their right. But the fact that the honor was canceled, that the honor was rescinded, and that the gala was canceled caught many of them by surprise.
And, of course, the pressure also added by the fact that the city council and I think it was also the school district who both passed resolutions praising the work of Angela Davis. Roy, did you hear me there?
I did. I just heard. I didn't hear the last part.
The city council and the school board, I believe, both of them, they passed resolutions praising the work of Angela Davis, correct?
Yes, those organizations both did that very publicly. Yesterday, the city council, in an impassioned speech by one of the councilors, talked about the importance of Angela Davis and the importance of running your own institutions, and how the fact that if that had been a man, it probably would not have been done the way it came down. And then the school board gave its own resolution today. So organizations around the city are coming out in favor of honoring Angela Davis. And then, of course, as you mentioned at the top of the show, a coalition of local leaders, academics, business leaders, political leaders have come together and decided there will be an event celebrating Angela Davis on February 16th.
Let's talk about that. And it's not going to be a ticketed event. It's going to be open to the public, correct?
It's a grassroots event. They have not decided the venue. It's going to be a conversation with Angela Davis to talk about not just her legacy, but her work around the world now for human rights. And it'll be open, and it'll be an opportunity for everyone to come. I spoke with one of the organizations that sent a letter to the Civil Rights Institute saying that they asking them to reconsider their selection of her. And the head of that board, who said that they unanimously sent the letter, said they would welcome the opportunity to sit down with Professor Davis when she was here and perhaps start a dialogue to see if they could come to some common ground.
It's also, I believe, this also causes folks to confront this whole issue of black-Jewish relations. Of course, we recently saw Mark Lamont Hill, who was fired from CNN because of his public support for Palestinians. Of course, Angela Davis said in her own statement that was the reason why this decision was made, even though the Civil Rights Institute has yet to say exactly what comments from her public record that they say do not meet the criteria of the Fred Shuttlesworth Award. And are any folks talking about that, this whole idea of black folks and Jewish folks in Birmingham being at odds over issues like this?
Well, what's interesting is what people are talking about is that there are numerous coalitions between African Americans and people in the Jewish community working on various projects. This was an instance that I think caught many people by surprise. Certainly anyone has the right to express their opinion and object to anyone being honored, but I haven't run across anyone in the Jewish community here who expected that the BCRI would comply with their request and then cancel their event. So I think you're going to see more opportunities and more, maybe not through the BCRI, but see more events that are trying to bring people together to have an open dialogue about the things that matter to each organization, to each community, and see if there can be more of an effort to move forward in a positive way. The head of the board for the Birmingham Holocaust Education Center, which did send a letter to BCRI, said she hopes that something good does come out of this because every city needs it, and certainly Birmingham is one.
All right, Roy Johnson, AL.com. We appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
All right.
I want to bring my panel right now. We have Rena Shabarar, Republican strategist, also Joe Madison, a Sirius XM radio show host, Monique Presley, attorney, and of course we also have Bill Spriggs, economist, AFL-CIO, Howard University. Folks, again, this went from rescinding the decision on Friday to them not commenting. They still have not commented beyond these board members resigning. Now 3 folks resigning, lots of public pressure. Pretty stupid move by the Civil Rights Institute.
Very stupid move. And here we are in 2019 with an individual who, by the way, has world recognition. And, you know, it takes you back to, you know, the 60s, maybe even the 50s. And of all places, Birmingham, Alabama, and I'm
a woman who's a native of Birmingham.
Yes, exactly. And I'm just so glad that Fred Shuttleworth isn't alive to see this, because I'm certain he would be outraged to know that his name has been besmirched like this.
Monique, you had Roy made a point about one of the council members talked about that they would have not done this to a male recipient. Now, what's interesting is that last year Harry Belafonte was one of the recipients, has been very critical of Israel. Danny Glover is a previous recipient, also critical of Israel. Those awards were never rescinded. Now is the case with Angela Davis.
Right. We see the misogyny and the sexism kicking up all over the place, and I call it the era of Trump. But we also see the just privilege and the exertion of power and privilege in much more of an entitled fashion due to the current climate. So I think that this isn't just about, obviously, Angela Davis. It's not just about Jewish-black relations. It's about a white power center that can flex its muscle, and it doesn't have to be on the conservative side. It can be on the liberal side as well, and that's what we saw happen here.
Rena, Bill?
Yeah, I would say, you know, what's most disappointing is that she's not being judged on, it's been said, the totality of her work. You know, that's really disappointing. And as a millennial, I got to put that hat on for a minute, because I think young people in this country, we grew up thinking our country's so diverse and that diversity of thought is encouraged. And last I checked, you know, this is the United States of America. It's not Israel. This whole defending Israel at all costs is so, it just is, it confuses me on so many levels, because I think I see it happening the most out of the right. I know it's happening on the left as well, especially last week with the talk of Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib and her comments, you know, highlighting again, she's a Palestinian woman. The conflict between Israelis and Palestinians, again, I remain so confused by why we can't inject our American ideals into this conversation and say, hey, this is wrong. Somebody should, again, we should talk about the fact that founding farmers, it was in that article, the AL.com article, that founding farmers have owned slaves. Why aren't we rescinding awards of all these people who have done all these controversial things? Why just Angela Davis? So it's very confusing for me. Again, I can't stop using that word.
Bill?
Well, I think, you know, we have to get back to what is it that she objected to.
Which they still have not said, and would not even tell her.
Correct. And it creates division at a time in the progressive community. We don't need division. And if they were surprised or shocked that they got this reaction from the commission, then shame on them. Don't raise the issue if it's not going to be that serious to you.
Also, I appreciate that grassroots folks, Joe, have responded and are going to still say they're going to hold an event on February 16th to honor her.
And that's exactly what should happen. You know, most of these significant changes, all significant changes, quite candidly, always start from the bottom up. Yeah. And that's what this is an example of. And as the panel was talking, I just wonder how many of these people in Birmingham who object to whatever they object to and not telling anybody have been to Israel themselves, where even Israelis disagree over issues as it relates to the Palestinian and the Israeli conflict there. I've been to Israel, and I've met with people who have been both Israeli Jews, who have been Palestinians. Many of them have tried to work together. They often object. There's debate within.
This is one of those debates we can actually say there are good people on both sides. Yeah, I hate that phrase now, but it's kind of true, you know.
But I bet you after they see this podcast, I'll bet you anything, Roland. Now they're going to come up with some kind of explanation. But the reality is, you're right. It's going to happen anyway. She's going to be honored. She's worth listening to. I mean, this goes back to, remember when, I'm old enough to remember when the people rejected Angela Davis because they thought she was a communist.
Right.
You know, this is absurd in this day and age.
You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. I want you to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications. Joining us right now is Deron Cloud, who is organizing food banks for unpaid workers. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
So this is also, there's a story of Loudoun County. They're also considering passing an emergency measure to increase funding to food banks to pay for to help folks with federal workers. And there are people out there who are being asses about federal workers, folks like Donald Trump, who are like, okay, you know, y'all can do whatever. Even they're telling the people of the Coast Guard, oh, have a garage sale. I mean, just the absolute arrogance and the dismissive attitude towards federal workers. As Nancy Pelosi said, it's not like they can be like Donald Trump, go ask daddy for a loan or ask daddy for some money. These are people who literally live paycheck to paycheck.
It insulted my conscience. I looked at it and I couldn't believe when you talked about that Coast Guard thing. And I felt, because I'm a playwright, I feel like I'm looking at something scripted. I'm looking at something that's just been written to be funny, because I can't believe they're saying this to people who have to pay bills. And that sign you just showed, I mean, that sign says it all. I mean, I get goosebumps because this is what people are facing. And as for me, that's why I said we have to do something about it.
And again, what I hope folks understand, and one of the reasons why I talk to some of the workers out there, is because there's somehow this belief that, oh, no, they'll be all right. Okay, but if you're watching at home right now, imagine you going to work. Imagine you going to work and putting the work in, but you're not getting paid for it. And then there's a possibility that first of all, we don't know how long it's going to last. You've got Lindsey Graham now telling Donald Trump to declare a national emergency to fund this wall. He's saying, I'm not going to do it. He's definitely afraid of people on the right, of them criticizing him. And so he might be so spiteful where he'll say, and he's already said it, I'll let it go on for years. I don't care.
Right. Well, you know, that's one of the reasons I do the feeding, because as a pastor, I'm on the front line. And on the front line, I started, we're doing an event this weekend, and on the front line, I literally had a sister working on this and then found out she was furloughed. And so she said, this is keeping me from being afraid because I don't have anything to do, and I'm only going to be able to make it one more week. And I realized this is impacting so many people psychologically as well, because they've done all the right things. And then if you play by the rules and then you're getting screwed, it just hurts everyone. I'm
going to bring my panel here. C.J. Jordan, Senior Vice President, Government Affairs, Steptoe Group. We also have Cleo Monago, Social Political Analyst and Activist, as well as Dr. Greg Carr, Department of Afro-American Studies at Howard University. And again, if you're watching mainstream media, they're having a process conversation. They're having a piss and match conversation. But when we talk, and then they go, okay, federal workers, not getting checks. But the reality is, these are human beings with families, with children, husband, wives, girlfriends, boyfriends, significant others, single, married, I don't care what it is. And when you talk about and how we all shop, most folks don't go shop and then you got enough food to last you 2 months. You're buying food on a week by week or 2 weeks at most. And so if you're all of a sudden now talking about, I can't even feed my family, that is a fundamental issue for 800,000 people.
Brother, when you show that sign, $1,100 for child care.
Did you see that?
$600 for insurance. That conversation with that 9-year-old son is involving your health. Man, and we're talking domestically. Let's talk internationally. I've got friends, and we all have friends, probably, y'all know, in the State Department who have been assigned to embassies in Africa. I'm running errands now for people they're furloughed in Nigeria, in South Africa, and these are working class black folk. It ain't just black, it's brown, it's white.
That's the other piece. People understand when you say federal workers, not just those in the U.S., those who are living abroad.
That's exactly right. Voice of America. I did an interview today on Martin Luther King for something from Martin Luther King. The sister is from Senegal. They've been furloughed. They're working, and she said she's got a family. And we're sitting there in the interview, and she's sitting there like, I don't know what I'm going to do. These are working class people, Roland.
CJ?
I think, look, the president is compassionate. He understands the
I'm sorry, hold on. Which president?
President Trump. And he understands the gravity of this. But he's also dealing with the fact that last month, 32,000 individuals came across our border illegally. And that is also have to be dealt with. Now, the president...
CJ,
the president did give some numbers to Nancy Pelosi and said, we want to work with this number. I'll come down and let's deal with DACA.
Hold on, let's back up here. If I recall, let me just make sure, let's see if this timeline is correct. If I recall, the United States Senate passed a bill to fund the federal government. It passed 100-0. They had the assurances of Vice President Mike Pence that Trump was going to sign it. Yes or no?
No, that is absolutely correct.
Okay, so the Senate passed it. It then went to the House, right?
That is absolutely correct.
But while it was going to the House, Ann Coulter and Fox News lost their minds and said, oh my God, what is he doing? He shouldn't do this. He then, on a Thursday, goes, okay, I'm not going to do it. Sorry, Paul Ryan, I'm not going to sign this. So then Republicans in the House then passed a bill that had border funding. Yes or no?
That is correct.
And then Mitch McConnell said, the hell with this, we going home. We already passed the bill. So the person, and tell me if I'm correct or not, I want to make sure my memory is correct. Was there not a meeting in the Oval Office where Trump, the man you just said is compassionate,
he is compassionate,
told Senator Chuck Schumer and Representative Nancy Pelosi, y'all don't worry about it. I'm going to own this shutdown. Did that happen?
That was his words out of his mouth.
So who lied?
I don't think anybody lied.
No, hold up.
Oh, no.
Did Vice President Mike Pence say to Republicans and Democrats, hey, y'all go ahead and pass the funding bill. He's going to sign it.
At the end
Did that happen?
That happened.
So who lied?
He didn't lie.
But how did he didn't lie? Because if he told them he's going to sign it, but then the next day he sends a tweet out and changes his mind, how is he compassionate? How is he also compassionate?
He's very compassionate, and he has a prerogative as the commander-in-chief to change his mind.
But hold up. How is he compassionate when this man literally like, hey, you know what? Y'all got to deal with it.
He campaigned on it.
But he campaigned on what?
Mexico paying for the wall.
On border security.
No. He said, he told us.
Security.
I'm just checking lies right now.
Go ahead, brother.
He told us Mexico paying for this wall.
And he has a prerogative to
Has
change his
Mexico paid for this wall?
No, Mexico hasn't paid.
So hold up. So who didn't lie?
He didn't lie.
How's he didn't lie?
No, it's
because if he said Mexico paying for the wall.
At the end of the day, what the president also said that in the bill dealing with NAFTA, he would also have Mexico come
I'm sorry, hold up. Has that particular, first of all, NAFTA no longer exists because he got rid of it. But the new one.
Hold
up.
Hasn't been completely signed.
Oh, stop right there. So how can you say he's going to get funding out of something that has not been signed yet.
And that's because Nancy Pelosi.
Hold up. But wait a minute.
Hold on,
Hold
let
up.
me finish.
Didn't that deal get signed a few months ago?
It got signed, but waiting on
Who was in control of the House a few months ago?
Congress. Republican
Who was in
Congress.
control of the Senate a few months ago?
Republicans.
So what the hell were y'all doing?
We was working. We're not propaganda. At the end of the day, when the president looked at and his advisors looked and found out that, wait a minute, the bill that the president had promised to sign that was passed by a Republican Congress did not have border wall funding.
Hold up. What? But who was in control of the Senate?
But it did.
Look,
Hold
it
up.
did not
Who was
have-
in
it did
control
not-
of the Senate?
It did not have funding
CJ,
for the
who
wall.
was in control of the Senate?
We were.
Who's we?
Republicans.
And did y'all vote for the funding bill?
They voted, but the funding for the wall was not in it.
Well, hold up. He didn't ask for the funding for the wall.
Yes, he
and Vice
did.
President Mike Pence said, it's fine, y'all can go ahead and pass it.
Bro, they didn't spend the money that they got for the funding for last year.
They
the
didn't
only
know.
answer to any of this is simple.
No.
It's very simple. It's propaganda.
CJ,
It's not
excuse me,
propaganda.
sorry.
Since 1986, we've
when
been
you
waiting
hear
for
that
funding
Trump
for the
is
wall.
compassionate, go ahead. Go
He's
ahead.
compassionate.
Well, see, from my perspective, well, frankly, I was kind of surprised to hear the term compassionate coming from Trump. But what's missing so far, from my perspective, from this conversation is priorities, white power and control priorities, Trump, for lack of a better term, all this stuff y'all talking about, there is not what. Also, the people like Trump who are in charge of these decisions don't have the same class challenges that these people have. They can't fathom them. As a matter of fact, in most cases, they look down on them. Like, you poor people can't even eat. You're not even that valuable. But what's interesting about...
But even though the white farmers in Iowa, who he screwed with the tariffs, can't get their checks.
Right. But we're going back to priorities again because were white farmers there today?
No, federal workers.
Oh, exactly. But even though the white farmers were not there today, the white farmers are affected based on what you said.
Precisely.
But the white farmers, no matter how psychotic it looks to us, if we don't have their priorities, they're on the side of the white power and control agenda.
Oh, yes.
Which is why they're on the side of the wall. They don't care if they're starving to death and lose the rest of their teeth. They want to stay in control, and they want white people to be in control.
That has nothing to do
and those
about
poor
control of
people
white
are going
folks.
through. Oh, yes, it does.
But
this whole wall thing is an irrational white supremacist reaction
It is
to
not
controlling
irrational.
the border. Well, no, there's some things. Well, that's a whole other
But
topic.
I'm trying to understand, CJ. If more people are here illegally because they've overstayed with visas, and if more drugs actually come in through points of entry, in fact, today he had all these guns that were laid out that came through points of entry, not across the border, the wall-less border,
No.
through the ports of entry.
Airports.
It's like
Fentanyl coming through
so
Canada.
he's lying.
He's lying.
No, he's not lying.
It's not coming through airports?
No, I'm not saying that
Well, no,
those
but
guns are not
but
coming.
he's saying it's not. Are
No,
you
you got
saying it is?
guns and drugs coming across the border.
No,
you still
come
have
on
some.
now.
Okay, actually, let me help you out. Guns and drugs
drugs
ain't
ain't
coming across the border, actually coming
Yes, they-
under the border.
Well, through the
tunnels,
And
which a
again,
wall ain't stopping because the wall's
Depending
not going to drill down
depending on how far
100
they
feet
go.
deep.
The worst drugs are coming in through airports. They can't be checked. They're coming
Okay.
from China. They're
And I
coming
guess what I
They're
don't
coming from China,
understand,
they're
I don't
coming from
understand.
Nigeria.
Go ahead,
But
Doc.
at the
Go
end
ahead.
of the day, we're dealing with a population movement, and that is a crisis.
Right,
and
right. And 800,000 people
and
who
so-
Americans can't feed their
and at
family.
the end of the day,
Brother, go
the
ahead.
president wants a wall, and he campaigned on it.
I'm CJ. I'm still stuck on. Roland asked you 6 to 7 factual questions, and you had to give an answer. And I need to understand, and this is wonderful for me to be here. How do you say compassionate when that man got to tell his 9-year-old things is about to change? Where the hell is compassion?
There is compassion.
Where?
There is compassion. I understand it's a very difficult choice.
No, please name compassion.
I am saying again.
What is compassion?
Compassion is, at the end of the day, keeping a promise that he campaigned on. I understand that it's let me finish. Let me finish. I understand that he made a very tough decision as leadership, because in leadership you make tough decisions. And that tough decision that he made is the fact that at the end of the day, he wants the funding for the wall and come to table on DACA.
But you're talking about follow through. This
is classical cognitive dissonance propaganda.
It's propaganda.
Because I'm sitting next to you and I'm saying to you, when you say compassion, and you see that man put that sign out there, and that man says, I'm going to finish what I'm saying. I cannot pay my rent, my insurance, my child care is $1,100, $600, and this president says, you know what, put this on me?
He understands that. And the bottom line is, he understands when you're in leadership, you're going to make very
Sister, you've fallen into the miseducation.
I'm not miseducated at all.
Cleo, make your final comment.
My final comment is that the question which raised my brow, the statement that raised my brow was the term compassion.
Right.
He asked you about compassion. Roland has asked you about compassion, and your answers have nothing to do with what compassion means, which means caring, which means being concerned. But I mean, you're saying that rhetorically, and I think he does care about his agenda. He cares about following through with what he says he's going to do for the white nationalist agenda. But when it comes to caring about human beings, he's not caring. And I want to close this. I want to be redundant.
He does care
You have
about
not
human beings.
responded to the question about compassion. You talked about follow through. Trump said he's going to get the wall up. So he's going to get the wall up any way he can, by any means necessary. But that has nothing to do with the phrase compassion.
I'm going to give you your last word before I go to my next story. But you're going to have to define me how he compassionate. I mean, I need to see something tangible. I need to see something that's real.
The president understands the fact as a leader he's going to make tough decisions. He is not oblivious of the fact that, guess what, there are 800,000 people that he is commander-in-chief of that are furloughed. He is not oblivious to that, and the people that advise him recognize that. But at the end of the day,
Stephen Miller damn sure don't.
He ran on the fact, I want a border wall, and he's also said to the Democrats, let's do a deal on DACA.
He ran on I want a border wall, and for 2 years.
2 years.
He had a Republican-controlled House, a Republican-controlled Senate, it had the White House, and they did nothing. They had the votes to get it done. They didn't have to ask Democrats to get it done. They did nothing. Nothing. All caps, boldface, italicized, underline. And if you couldn't do a damn thing when you had the power, well then, don't come whining now.
Because
Speaking
at the
of power,
then you didn't have enough votes.
Speaking of, you had the votes. You didn't want to act, but you had no guts because you wanted to pass a $1.5 trillion tax cut for the rich, which has also caused the deficit to explode. That's what you were more concerned about. But let me go on to you got opportunity zones when you ain't shown one opportunity yet. All you had was a news conference, and I've been covering it. Filtered, be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. As Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. As Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. As Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Last night on Lifetime, they debuted a 6-part documentary on the singer R. Kelly that is burning up social media. It is Surviving R. Kelly and tells a story of many of the women who say that they were victims of R. Kelly, some who say that he was involved with them. Others who say involved with family members. It was a stunning first night. Nearly 2 million people watched it on Lifetime, and of course also was trending on Twitter as well. Here's an excerpt from the documentary.
Our daughter, Azriel Clary, has been with R. Kelly about 3 years now. She fell in love with someone that is a predator.
It's been almost 2 years, and we still haven't seen our daughter. We both was blindsided. We didn't know about the storm was coming.
My daughter, Dominique, has been in his life for 9 years. Any man that don't let their mother see their child see their mother, and she's still living, you ain't got no heart. I'm not giving up. I'm not. My plan is just to go into the hotel. I know she's there. God didn't leave me here and then take it away. I came too close. Come on, we leaving? Come on. It's okay, baby. It's okay.
All right, folks, and my next guest, also, you saw her last night. She's a former protege of R. Kelly. Her name is the singer Sparkle. Here we go. First, play a clip of her from last night's documentary.
When the trial began, this was a big media event, so it was a real circus.
The prosecution, their entire case was the tape. R. Kelly and an underage girl having sex.
They turned down the lights and they put it on, and it's grim.
Like, you hear things, but to see it visually, and for her to be so young. My oldest brother did get on the stand, and he said that it wasn't her. It wasn't my niece on the tape.
Before the verdict came down, I saw Sam Adams Jr., who was sitting next to R. Kelly, turn to him and say, "We did everything we could." And the mood in the room was very much that he was about to be a condemned man.
The series everyone is talking about.
All right, folks, and again, joining us right now is Sparkle. Sparkle, glad to have you here on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Thank you for having me. How are you?
It was hard watching this last night as someone who had to go through this up close and personal. How was it for you to see the reaction to the first two parts of this docuseries last night?
Wow, rough for you. It was really rough for me. Yeah, I had a bevy of emotions again. Angry, and to learn a lot more things that I didn't know. It was hard.
And when you talk about, first of all, there were things that you were aware of, there were other folks involved, but then also to see all of these stories meshed together, to see the other women, to hear individuals, men who were in his camp, describing when his personal aide being at the wedding of R. Kelly and Aaliyah, and then hearing his brother who's in prison say, "Well, look, I like older women, and Robert, he likes younger women. That's just folks' taste." I mean, it was a whole lot to deal with in 2 hours.
Yeah, it's crazy, and it will continue tonight. You know, the people involved and my involvement in it really was because I basically got the ball rolling with the tape of my niece being on the tape. Robert having taped them, filmed them, and then when I was able to view the tape via a lawyer here in Chicago, I called the authorities immediately. You know, I didn't wait a day, a second, an hour, even a year. I called them immediately.
And when you talk, first of all, I remember that period because I was running blackamericaweb.com and somebody had actually, that tape began to circulate. And somebody had sent the tape to our offices in Dallas. And so I remember it was unmarked. And so, you know, you get this tape and you pop it in and you're like, okay, say what?
What did you just see, right?
And you're going, okay, that's R. Kelly. And again, as somebody who was looking at this, instantly you're like, that's not a woman. That's a girl. And I think what a lot of people forget, and I've seen people already on social media saying that, well, he was acquitted. I was in Chicago for 6 years, and I ran the Chicago Defender. And when he was acquitted, people forget the jury did not say that was not R. Kelly on the tape.
Exactly.
What the jury said is they could not determine the age of the girl on the tape. His defense threw out that, oh, that was somebody who looked like him. No, the jurors were clear. That's R. Kelly. They couldn't ascertain the age of the young girl who we now know is your niece.
Yes. And you know what? What's unfortunate is there were 12 other people who attested to her age, and like her basketball coach, teachers. There were law enforcement in the suburb that we grew up in that came forward and testified. So even if they don't believe me, you know, these other 11, 12 people who aren't family, why not believe them?
You, in the clip we played, you which we'll see tonight, when you said that your brother testified, said, no, it wasn't her. And you clearly, even now, was stunned to even have to still think about that. One, is there a relationship there? Two, for the other people who continue to defend him, who you knew, who were in his camp, have you seen any of them, and have you said, what the hell is wrong with y'all?
Yeah, you know what? Luckily, I haven't seen too many of anybody because I'm kind of a loner and I've kind of stayed to myself. But as far as my brother is concerned, him stating that it wasn't her on the tape, in the very beginning when I called the family and then called the authorities, he said to me, I knew something was happening. And I'm like, well, dang, like, why you ain't clue me in? You know, because the wool's over my eyes at this point. I'm blinded by something that I'm not seeing, you know, clearly. So why didn't you clue me in? But, you know, at the end of the day, he said what he said. And, you know, now people see and know that, you know, what I said was real and was true. You know, I stand by my truth. And I've been saying this since the tape surfaced. And even before the tape surfaced, I went to the authorities and had them to look in on my niece and my family because, you know, my hands were tied. And basically they told me that there's not too much I can do because I'm not her mom or her dad, you know, just an aunt. There, you know, I have limited, I guess, nothing I really could do.
People also, again, forget that it was 6 years before he went on trial.
Yeah,
so
they took it a long time.
And again, I remember watching the trial, and what I watched in terms of the coverage. And so what many people speculated was that because your niece, if I'm correct, she testified, didn't she?
No, she didn't testify.
Okay, but there were other young girls who testified, and the problem is they showed photos of them earlier, and jurors were sitting here dealing with the fact that, okay, I'm now listening to a who is now a woman, but you're trying to get me to think about her when she was a girl, and now they having to deal with that as well.
Yeah. So, that was a little play on things, too. I think they drudged it out so long so that she could age, and that, you know, if they did show a photo, they'd be like, nah, well, I'm not sure. Okay, well, it looks like her, but I'm not really sure. So, yeah, you know, they had a game plan.
During this whole point, did your niece and her family remain in Chicago? Because I know there were other individuals, there were stories where folks were sent out, they were sent away, and there was one family that went to France that lived in a shotgun house in Chicago, and you're going, okay, I don't know how that vacation was paid for.
Mm-hmm. I don't know for sure. You know, you hear rumors, and you can't completely say that, you know, my family was in the country or out of the country. I heard rumors that they did leave the country, but they've remained in the Chicagoland area today. However, you know, Robert had the resources to do a bunch of things, and, you know.
He couldn't stop this from being aired. We know for a fact that several of his representatives, his legal team, his publicists, all his folks left. And of course, he's had concerts that are shut down. The final part airs tomorrow night.
Yes.
What do you hope is next? Because again, he hasn't been prosecuted. He's never been convicted. And there are people, and there are lots of people out here, men and women, who still say, I don't care. I'm going to listen to his music. I'm gonna go see him. What do you think should happen next?
Well, I hope that people will watch the rest of the series. I'm sure it's more riveting than the first 2 episodes. I haven't seen the episodes at all, so I'm watching it with everybody else, and I'm cringing, to see everything that's happening, with these young girls. I'm not a survivor. I'm just speaking up for my niece. Even though that even if she doesn't want to speak up for herself, or she can't for some reason, I just wish that everybody would watch, take notes, moms, dads, with your young girls, and even there are middle-aged girls that are involved as well. So, you have to just be mindful of the predatory person that could sneak in and do these types of things to your kid. Because, hey, they could be standing right next to you, sitting right next to you. I wrote a song, that my new single out, We Are Ready, that is a part of the piece, and it's very moving, very heartfelt, very women-empowered, very Me Too, time's up, and it speaks to the time. So I'm hoping that everybody watches and really take notes of what's going on. Our community, it's sad to say that, we will shun the victims or the survivors, if you will,
right,
and be okay with, I'm still going to listen to him. I'm still going, whatever with him, because he's R. Kelly. Come on, y'all. Come on.
Do you still have a relationship with your niece?
We have a relationship. This may have set us back. Recently I lost my mom in October, and, it's just been a rough time for us. So hopefully, with God and we can get through this, again. I was estranged from them for 10 years because I spoke out. They didn't want me to speak out. So
when you say they, you meaning?
My family. I was estranged from my family for 10 years. We only started talking back again in 2011 when our parents' 50th anniversary was, and we gave them a big, to do.
Wow. And in all those years, you and your niece have not discussed any of this.
I still handle her with kid gloves because this thing is serious. Like, I don't want to be the one to, for her real breakdown. She's beautiful on the outside, but I know she's screaming on the inside.
Sparkle, we certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much. We'll be watching tonight and certainly tomorrow night as well.
Thank you.
All right, thanks a bunch. I want to go to my panel here. It's very interesting, Julian, to see these reactions. You had a young woman who was in last night's episode who said she and others saw R. Kelly having sex with Aaliyah. Aaliyah's mom puts out a statement today saying it's flat out not true. The woman and so-called backup singer in the forthcoming Surviving documentary that describes seeing, meeting, or even breathing the same air as my daughter, Aaliyah, yes, pull it up, please, is lying and is a liar. My husband and I were always on tour with her and at interviews in every place she went throughout her entire career. Whoever this woman is, I have never seen her before anywhere on planet Earth until now. These lies and fabrications cannot be tolerated and allowed to be spewed from the forked tongues of saboteurs of Aaliyah's legacy. My daughter only wanted to realize her dream of sharing her talent with the world and give her all performing on stage and in front of the camera for the fans she adored so much. She realized that dream thanks to those true fans who still love and support her legacy unconditionally to this day. Shame on all those involved in this project who thought it kosher to drag Aaliyah's name into a situation that has nothing to do with her today. Once again, this will not be tolerated. Sincerely, Diane Houghton. Yet you had the guy who was R. Kelly's personal aide who said, I was there at the wedding. Mm-hmm. I witnessed it. I forged the marriage license. There was also an annulment.
Denial is a horrible thing. I mean, this mother has got to come to grips with her abdication of responsibility for her daughter. And the only way for her to do it, frankly, is to cover up. I wasn't there. I don't know anything. What I do know is that, you know, when there's smoke, there's fire. And there's a whole lot of smoke around R. Kelly and young women. And the fact is that so many people think it's okay to exploit women. And so many women have been socialized to use themselves as tools of exploitation. So many women believe that they use their sex and sexuality to get ahead, and there are many men who will profit from that. R. Kelly is a predator. I mean, I have no doubt about that. He is a predator of young women, and this is something that our community, Roland, has to really speak up about.
Cleo, I've seen a bunch of men attacking the sisters on social media saying he wasn't found guilty. This is an attack on black men. These are white folks trying to bring down black men. Black people should not be used against other black people. There are folks posting videos saying, I don't care, I'm going to still listen to his music. I don't care what you think. And all of a sudden, we've also seen other people in the documentary Nelson George talked about it. He said, this is well known throughout music. He began to bring up other artists, whether it's Jerry Lee Lewis, whether it's Elvis Presley, whether it's Chuck Berry, Woody Allen. I mean, so as somebody who deals with behavior, what do you say to black people? Like, forget anybody who's white in this whole, what do you say to black people having this kind of conversation in our community?
Well, first off, what's real clear to me is that the power of celebrity is pretty amazing. This dude said he believed folks can fly. And they have flown out of logic, common sense, and their capacity to discern what's good and what's bad. This man's concerts still sell out. But you ask me, how do I feel about black people who ignore that? I think that we need to understand that we live in a country that has taught black people to have a fear of irrelevance. And what I mean by that is that this country implies that we're not relevant. So when someone actually makes it to the heights of great relevance and success, they're really, really respected. And they're really looked up to because they've made it to the point of being profoundly relevant and successful, quote unquote. And also I think this is similar to what you were talking about, Dr. Malvo, is that what happens to women is considered, oh, well, they're women.
Especially black girls.
Especially black girls, but even black female adults. They're women. They're essentially not valued in a society. They should be glad to be there. And there's some men who have the perspective that you just mentioned in terms of they're trying to bring down a brother, who are thinking to themselves that they're trying to bring down a brother because brothers they try to bring down brothers. This is a very complex issue because the dude is guilty. I saw the video. I saw the video a long time ago, and it's him.
That was a girl.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
A child.
Was 12
it was clear.
or 13
A child.
or 14.
But I wouldn't suggest...
Well, no, the reason I'm saying girl, because a lot of people keep saying she was a woman.
No, you're right.
And I need to have a distinction.
That's important.
Because they kept, and people were going back and forth. I'm like, no. I'm like, I need y'all, even, like, well, Aaliyah was 15. No. She was still a teenager. She was not a woman.
But
these people are caught up in it.
But this girl
was grown.
Grown.
This girl,
Cleo and Eugene.
This girl, Aaliyah, etc., are considered in some people's minds lucky to have been there
and disposable.
And in fact, some of the women in the video in the documentary talked about, look, I just wanted to build my career. That's what it was all about. Eugene, what we're also dealing with a culture that highly sexualizes black girls.
Yeah.
This whole deal of, oh man, look at me, she stacked. She 14, 15. She 14, 15.
15. That's
okay. She ain't a woman.
Yep.
She ain't legal. She's a girl. She's a teenager. Eugene, go ahead.
It's a mess. I'm gonna just real quick rapid fire. There's a lot of trash men, a lot of trash black men that are defending R. Kelly. This is literally indefensible.
No, they're women too.
Lots of women.
But just in respect of what's going on in social media, of black men attacking women that are, coming at R. Kelly. I mean, this is, these aren't secrets. These are a lot of open secrets that's been known. Aaliyah's mom is in complete denial. I mean, you can't look at that clip of them in the BET segment. They're dressed alike, super flirty,
and won't answer the question, are y'all together?
Are y'all? You can't look at that and say, oh, hey, there's.
If I'm the mama or the daddy, hell no, they ain't together.
I mean, there's a lot of failing of the children that took place around R. Kelly.
Again, folks, second part of the docuseries, parts 3 and 4 airs tonight. And then the other final 2 parts airs tomorrow night. And shout out to Dream Hampton, producer on this, of course, a longtime journalist. And she said, bottom line is, she said, I got my eyes locked and loaded on R. Kelly. You also have the people with the Mute R. Kelly campaign as well. And so you got to ask yourself the question, not only at his last piece, before I go to my next guest, in this documentary, they also broke down a lot of his songs, that how they are specifically tied to him being with underage girls, being with, yes, as Julian said, children. So when people sit here and go, well, you know, I'm cool with this song. No. Trust me, there are meaning behind lyrics. Just understand that. Hey fam, go check out Roland Unfiltered, the blackest show on all of digital, cable, and broadcast. Check out our audio podcast. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Press play.